evening and welcome to a special broadcast from DETV News, 4 hours of live coverage on today's statewide primary election. I'm your host, Kerwin Gaines.
And I'm Patti Nash. We're going to be joined tonight by some of the state's top experts in elections and things political. So in addition to up-to-the-minute results, we'll discuss some of the issues raised during the campaigns.
While the general election is not until November the 5th, the main action happens on primary day in Delaware. Once considered a swing state, Delaware has been solidly blue. With a few exceptions for nearly 2 decades, Democrats often enjoy double-digit victories over their GOP opponents. That makes the Democratic primary critical to who governs. But there's also some action on the Republican side tonight with 7 of the 33 contested races on the state's Republican ballot.
Polls are open till 8 p.m. and anything can happen. There's a lot on the line tonight. In the Democratic primary, voters are choosing a candidate for Delaware's lone congressional seat. General election candidates for 4 statewide offices, including the governor and lieutenant governor, Wilmington's mayor and nearly half of the city council, leadership in Newcastle County, and multiple seats in the General Assembly. Republicans are deciding on a gubernatorial candidate, 2 state senators, and county council seats in Sussex County. We'll have a quick overview of candidates in just a few minutes.
And yes, we are highly aware of what's happening on the national scene tonight. So if you break away to watch the Harris-Trump debate at 9 p.m., well, frankly, we kind of don't blame you. But don't forget to come back and see us afterwards. We'll be right here still giving you coverage until 11 p.m. Or you can use, your device to watch on our website or detvch.com or on Facebook or even Instagram, all of our social media outlets. Please feel free to leave a comment. Let us know what we're missing because we're going to be here giving you information. So we might not be able to know everything that's going on. So in the comments, let us know. Before we get into who is running for what, let's hear from you, the voters. The DETV visited several polling places today to learn what's going on and wanted to know what was on your mind in regards to who voted, what it looked like. So let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Paige Monet here with DETV, and I'm downtown Wilmington on Market Street to check the local temperature for this year's primary election. With 33 seats on the ballot, there's a lot at stake here in the first state. A seat in Congress, the governor, and the next mayor of Wilmington. Let's see what our fellow Delawareans have to say. First, was there anyone on the ballot that stood out to you?
I look up, girl, look, that is a personal thing. You can, you know what, I ain't never going to say that, okay? All right? Now, it's some folks that I think when it came to the city council at large, I was definitely invested in that because there's some people who were running who I know very personally, and I want to see them succeed. So, yeah.
And do you think your vote will make a difference?
All those people, they were also Hornets, by the way, Delaware State Hornets State. Yeah. That's a hint. But go ahead.
Do you think your vote will make a difference in this election? Why or why not?
Yes, it's going to make a difference because my ancestors have died for my right to vote. So it's absolutely going to make a difference. By me voting, I can actually go tell someone else to vote. It's hard for me to tell a young kid who just turned 18 coming from my community, my niece who just turned 18, it's easier for me to tell her to go vote because I voted. So by me voting is going to make a change for the next generation coming up. If she's looking up to me, she's like, my uncle voted, or young kids who look up to me, be like, hey, I looked up to this guy and he voted, so I'm going to vote. So my vote actually makes a difference.
I would say vote with your heart. Don't listen to what other voters are voting for. Vote for what you believe in.
Is there anyone on the ballot that stood out to you?
Yes, I thought I had voted for. I'd gone to a couple of the forums, so I knew the candidates, at least for governor and mayor, pretty well.
Okay, cool. And were there any particular issues that led you to vote today? Like, how did you feel about the primary election itself?
Well, I vote every election, so it doesn't matter what's going on. The responsibility of voting, I think, is pretty significant, especially at a time when democracy is really on the bubble here.
Are there any local or state policies that you're concerned about that made you come out to vote today?
My concern for the city is the violence. The youth, the violence it's becoming unbearable, and it's sad to see. We're at multiple shootings per day. I think I've read eight or nine shootings within an 8-day period, which we have to do something in regards to that to redirect the energy. So hopefully the candidates that are elected are able to rectify and come up with a plan to help with that violence in the city.
Okay, and aside from that, were there any candidates that stuck out to you today on the ballot or that's running?
No one's specifically spoke out to me, but Mr. Cooper, I end up interacting with him over South Wilmington, and he's been a very intricate part as far as me coming out to vote today. So best of wishes to him. Also, best of luck to Alex as well, Mr. Hackett. So hopefully, we get the right officials in place to help change the city.
And then what would you say to voters in general, or specifically young voters? How do you think that your vote counts in this election?
If you don't vote, nothing will change. So if you don't get out and do your research on the candidates, you're basically not doing any justice for yourself or the city. So do your research and just, get out and vote, because every vote does count.
Why weren't you able to vote, though?
So I'm not registered, apparently. I'm registered as an independent. I never picked a party, even though I thought I picked a party. But they told me today that I didn't pick a party, so I wasn't able to vote. So I just filled out all the paperwork, and then I can vote in the primary, but I wasn't able to vote today.
Oh, that's kind of crazy. And you didn't know that before you came out here today?
Didn't know.
Even if you're independent, I think that you should still be able to vote. What do you think?
So I thought the same thing, but then after further explanation, I realized that we are voting for Democrat and we're voting for Republicans. So seeing that I'm not registered to pick either side, I guess they didn't really feel as though independents should be able to. It's not really independent, though, to be honest. I'm just registered as an independent. I think it's a clerical error, to be honest. So I just registered myself as a Democrat.
How do you think that this election will impact Delaware's future?
Well, I'm hoping more people came out to vote than ever, it seems like. So whatever direction it's going in, I hope it's a positive one.
So when you think about the elections, it is very important that we choose a candidate that can really represent us well. And then you think about the primaries. Unfortunately, definitely us people of minority descent, we typically don't come out for the primary, not understanding that it's the primary which is going to choose the right candidate at the general election. So it was important that we come out today to really show, these are the people we want to even represent us at a statewide level.
What are some of the top issues in Delaware that influenced your vote today?
You got to think about education. You got to think about healthcare. You got to think about a lot of things. And definitely as an entrepreneur, we run a business now, and there's a lot of impacts that's hurting minority businesses. So we got to see how we can really create a better environment for all of us. It's not always a black or white thing. I want to create equality. I want to create more opportunity for everybody. And right now, even you look across the country, how is it that our educational system is doing so poorly? What can we do to change that? So I'm looking for candidates that can really focus on that and make it better for us all.
Thanks, Paige. Paige told us there was a number of folks on the street who were not aware there was an election today, because primaries can sometimes garner little voter interest. In 2022, only 16% of registered voters came out to vote on primary day. Turnout is expected to be higher this year, as evidenced by the numbers of folks who have took the opportunity to vote early. In 2022, little over 7,100 people voted before Election Day. The Board of Elections tally for early voters this morning was 18,513, more than double the amount of early voters.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll get into who is on the ballot today when we come right back.
Stay with us.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware, We are digital platform innovators, and we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Still searching for cheap gas prices? Dump the pump and ride DART. You can DART to your destination for only $4 all day. Let DART do the driving while you enjoy our free Wi-Fi available on all buses statewide. While scrolling through your favorite apps, don't forget to download DART's free transit app for real-time bus information and enjoy the convenience of contactless fare payment through DART Pass. So what are you waiting for? Dump the pump and try transit. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
Government doesn't make a move without an agenda, some type of plan. The problem is we haven't been on the agenda. Sometimes we're overlooked. Sometimes our interests aren't the interests of those in power. I'm your host, Kerwin on DETV's new show, The Agenda. We're going to do our best to ensure that you, Delawareans, are knowledgeable about what's going on in the Assembly. Federal government, local government, it doesn't matter. We're going to do our best to ensure that folks that make the agenda on a daily basis have to answer for it. Let them explain what they're doing. If it affects you, it's on the agenda. Welcome back to DETV's coverage of Delaware's primary elections. First of all, I want to say, Patti, thank you so much for joining me. This is our first time actually working together.
Yes, Kerwin, it's nice to co-host with you.
Normally, you're telling me what I'm doing wrong, so I'm excited.
That's not true.
I'm excited that we're working together in regards to these primary elections. The only federal candidate, ladies and gentlemen, being decided tonight is for Delaware's one and only congressional seat. After U.S. Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester announced her run for Delaware's open Senate seat last year, the race to fill her seat gained speed. That's right, and multiple candidates are vying for the position on the Democratic side. State Senator Sarah McBride, who was recently on the agenda last week, who would be the first openly trans member of Congress, is heavily favored. She is facing businessman Mr. Earl Cooper and financier Elias Ware. Republicans Danielle Hall, and veteran business owner, and John Whalen, a retired business person as well, are seeking the GOP nomination.
In the most prominent and contentious campaign, 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans are vying to become Delaware's next candidate for governor. This became an open seat when John Carney could not run for a 3rd term. And as you all know, an open seat brings out the candidates. On the Republican side, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long, Newcastle County Executive Matt Meyer, and Colin O'Mara, former Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources, are competing. It's projected that more than $7 million will be spent on this primary, making it one of the state's most expensive in history. One candidate said it was also the nastiest they've seen. And let's take a look at what Trinidad Navarro had to say.
Well, if you compare this season to previous seasons, there's no comparison. I mean, Democrats didn't attack Democrats. Republicans didn't attack Republicans.
Okay.
Because what it does is, when you have Democrats fighting and slinging mud at each other, it just gives fodder for the other party. Same on the Republican side, right? So in years past, it's been manageable. It's been less nasty. And unfortunately this year, and I have to apologize to people in Delaware for some of the things that were said and some of the things that were done. Our campaign stayed above that. You've heard that expression, when they go low, we go high. And I really wish we would have done more of that as a party, as a state, than what we did this year. I think we fell short.
Well, those were the Democrats for the governor's candidate, Kerwin. On the Republican ticket, retired officer Gerald Price, former Representative Mike Ramone, and businessman Bobby Williamson are contenders.
There are 3 Democratic candidates vying for lieutenant governor in Delaware. each with deep roots in the state. Now, I will tell you, I haven't seen a race for lieutenant governor like this. Not only was it very expensive, not only was it contested, but it was actually pretty respectful in regards to how the governor's race is going. You didn't hear a lot of banter back and forth. You didn't hear a lot of anger and bad press in between the two. And the main reason is most of the candidates, they work together.
That's right. And you know what's bringing out a lot of candidates this year is there's a lot of open seats because it's like a domino effect. Once one person runs for the next office, that leaves their office open. So then you do get more contenders to come out when you don't have to run against an incumbent.
Senator Kyle Evans Gay, Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker, and retired U.S. Army Colonel, Debbie Harrington, bring varied experiences to the race. The Democratic nominees will face Republican Ruth Briggs King in the general election. If elected, Dorsey Walker or Harrington would make history for the first black woman to serve in the role of lieutenant governor for the state of Delaware. Nice.
We have a repeat in the race for insurance commissioner. Incumbent Trinidad Navarro, who you just heard from, and challenger Coyote Abagunde face off today. This rematch follows their initial contest in 2020 when Navarro won re-election.
That covers the statewide races. Coming up, we'll go over the races in Delaware, 3 counties. But first, here is Paige again with the man on the street. I love these comments with man on the street.
I like hearing from the voters.
I love hearing from the voters. You never know what you're going to get.
That's right.
You can't find anyone more candid than people on the street in the city of Wilmington.
Well, I was out talking to some voters today, and a lot of them were shy. They don't want to come on TV. They think with the contentious political scene in our country right now, they're a little nervous to go on television and say who they're supporting. So it took us a little longer this year to find voters willing to come on camera. So thank you to those folks who talked with us.
And I want to remind people again, I know I've been saying it throughout the broadcast, I know I've been saying it on the agenda, but please reach out to us on social media, right? Use the platforms real time. We have people here in the studio that are monitoring every single thing and that's going on social media. So make sure that you leave us a comment. Let us know what's going on.
Okay. So in the most, who's up next?
I am. So please stay with us as the election coverage moves forward, and we will be right back.
Thanks.
I'm asking for 45 more years.
I'm asking for my baby girl.
I'm asking to see it up and running again.
I'm asking for all of us.
1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. Ask about a prostate screening that can detect cancer when it's most treatable, so you can ask for so much more. Visit healthydelaware.org/prostate or call 211 to learn more.
A new beginning, a second chance. Call it what you want, but this is what never giving up looks like. This is what finding someone who believes in you looks like. I thought Goodwill was just a store until a friend told me about Train to Gain through Goodwill's Job Resource Center. After 5 years away, I had a lot of self-doubt and fear about my future. But Goodwill had my back, and today, I love where I work. They matched me with an employer who believes in second chances, and now I have a new start thanks to Goodwill.
To learn more about Goodwill's career development opportunities, call today.
You know the why for state-of-the-art fitness centers and amazing pools.
But we're so much more. The why is where Delawareans improve their health.
Where our communities get stronger.
Where everyone belongs.
It's where we battle chronic disease.
Where cancer survivors restore their mind and body.
And weight loss goals become lifelong habits.
We are the why.
Good for you and good for the community.
Welcome back. First up, we're going to talk about Newcastle County. There are many, many races in Newcastle County today. We'll try to go through them as quickly as possible. The race to receive the most attention was likely the Democratic primary for Wilmington mayor. There are also several Wilmington City Council seat up. Newcastle County Democratic voters will also decide on a candidate for county executive. There are county council seats on the ballot and a number of seats in the General Assembly, including State House Districts 2, 10, 15, 21, and 27. A primary in District 3 was canceled abruptly when Brandon Fletcher Dominguez dropped out of the race last week after he was questioned about his residency by the Board of Elections. Fletcher Dominguez announced on his social media pages that he was near homeless, sleeping at friends and living in his car, and he was not allowed to stay on the ballot. That annoyed some people on Facebook.
It did annoy some people, but he was someone, I know because he came onto the show, he was someone that was pressing for housing representation for all Delawareans and ensuring that, things like evictions and rents and control and things of that nature was going to be at the forefront in regards to legislation. So it's sad to see that someone like him, who was pressing for so many other people, was being affected by that as well. So, our hearts and minds go out to Brandon. I think that he was a young man trying to do the right thing, and we have to encourage that, especially not just in elections, but just overall. Brandon will be back. I have a very good feeling that he'll be back and discussing issues in one way or another sooner than we think. When current county executive Matt Meyer threw in his hat into the race for governor, his seat became open. 2 Democrats are vying for the position. Ms. Karen Hartley-Nagel, the current county executive and county council president, is facing Marcus Henry, son of former state senator Margaret Rose Henry and former development director for the Wilmington Housing Authority.
Hartley-Nagel's bid for county exec put her seat into play, and 5 people are being considered for the Democratic nomination. They include George Frankel, a former Senate page under Senator Chris Coons, Val Gould, a former teacher and policy analyst, Jason Hoover, founder of Save the Valley, Monique Johns, who advocates for technology access and community services, and Robert Williams, a former police officer and nurse. Candidates for 2 county council seats, Districts 7 and 12, will also be decided.
And it shouldn't be hard for folks. Well, it may be hard for folks to decide who, but DETV worked very hard to bring all of those candidates, as many of those candidates, to the forefront, regardless of the show. And I'm just not plugging my own, Patty, but there were so many others that were on and spoke directly to the people and let them know where they stood. So, in fact, if they were not telling the truth, not saying that politicians don't tell the truth, but if there was a discrepancy in regards to what they said, it was in the forefront for everybody.
Well, Kerwin doesn't want to brag, but he did interview most of the candidates for the big races over the last couple of weeks, working evenings and Sundays.
Yeah, but I mean, the community now knows where they stand. There's no question. They know where they stand regardless of their race. So I hope that everyone took notes, right, and made a great decision when they were in the poll, or they did not make a decision. I don't know. I hope everyone did vote, though. Perhaps the most unusual Newcastle County race is that for Wilmington mayor. Taking what many might consider a step backwards, sitting Governor John Carney threw his name into the ring. Carney faces Velda Jones Potter, who is well known in Wilmington, and ran for the seat when it was last up in 2020. We'll be watching that race closely tonight. There are almost 5 city council districts and 3 at-large seats in contention in Delaware's largest city.
Well, that covers Newcastle County. In Kent County, there are 5 races. They include a Republican primary for a county row office and Democratic primaries in 2 state representative districts and a Levy Court district. In Sussex County, one race to watch is Delaware House District 14, where longtime House Speaker Peter Schwarzkopf is retiring, and 3 Democrats, including embattled former Auditor Kathy McGinnis and Marty Rendon and Claire Schneider Hall, are vying to replace him in the primary. McGinnis, the former state auditor, enjoys strong ties to Rehoboth Beach and still retains support from many, including Speaker Schwarzkopf. The primary victor will face Republican Mike Simpler in the general election. Also in Sussex, in House District 36, incumbent Republican Representative Brian Shoup was first elected in 2018. This year, he'll face Patrick Smith in the Republican primary. Sussex County also has 2 seats on the county council, We are going to take a short break, and it is now time. We're going to do a time check. It is 7:36, so we've got 20 minutes before the polls close.
I'm excited. I want to ask you one question about Kathy McGinnis before we go to break.
Yeah.
You mentioned that she was embattled, right?
Right.
There were some big issues. There were some criminal offenses that's going on there. But now we're seeing in this election, we have a president that has 36 felony counts, and they can still run for the president of the United States. So can we be too hard on Kathy McGinnis for having, a misdemeanor or two? And I mean, do you think that's going to hold people back at the polls?
I don't know. I mean, from what it seems that she still enjoys the support of the community, and that, you can read into that some folks thought that she was unfairly, that she was come down on too hard.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe people think
Well, she gave her daughter a job. There was a lot of people who said there's nepotism all throughout.
You trying to tell me there's nepotism in the state? None of that's true.
Heaven forbid.
None of that's true.
But
lies.
Yeah. So we'll bring you all the results as soon as they come in. We're going to try to get you the numbers as quick as we can, and stay with us throughout this short break.
You have no reason not to stay with us. The other debate doesn't start for another hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
How did DETV start, and how did you get here?
DETV started approximately 10 years ago in the basement of my home. I had an idea to show people of color doing great things, but what happened was I got to the point that I said, I'm gonna just show people all together doing great things. The motto and the moral was to bring people together instead of using media to rip people apart. And doing that, I just did a lot of hard work, a lot of free stuff, a lot of things of just showing people being themselves. I figured that media, and I saw that media wasn't doing that, so I just decided to give it a shot, not knowing that it would bring me to where I am today. I had a great journey doing it, met some amazing people, did some amazing things, worked on some amazing projects, and with just a lot of hard work and a bunch of sacrifice, I'm here today. I done worked on everyone's campaign in the state of Delaware, and now, I'm just doing what I do and doing it with friends. My biggest accomplishment right now would have to be this, hands down, without a doubt. We want to make sure that we inform the community wholeheartedly. So again, they can have all the information that they need. For more information, you can find us at detvch.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook under DETV. Be sure to check us out. Tell me what you think.
Welcome back. All right, that's quick and concise and overview of the primary as we are able to pull together. Let's delve into some issues that made headlines this election season. On Zoom with us is Dr. Samuel Hoff, George Washington Distinguished Professor Emeritus at Delaware State University. Dr. Hoff is a political science scholar with several degrees. He taught at multiple universities and held numerous leadership roles at Delaware State University. He is an accomplished writer and a policy expert. Also on Zoom is Kim Wilson, a partner at Ruggiero Wilson Watson, one of the top lobbying firms in the state. A lifelong Delawarean, Wilson is a graduate of the Smyrna High School. And I mean, I like how Smyrna and all those schools, they're coming around, they're pulling around. Wilson is a graduate of Smyrna High School and has a master's degree from Wilmington University. In studio, we are joined by Miss Jane Brady, a former Superior Court judge and 3-term Attorney General, and the first woman to ever serve in that position, formerly the chair of the Delaware Republican Party. She is currently co-chair of A Better Delaware, a conservative public policy organization. And we also welcome Mr. Daniel Walker, who is currently a Deputy Cabinet Secretary of this Delaware State Health and Social Services, a University of Delaware graduate. Walker has served leadership roles with the Wilmington City Council and a nonprofit education advocacy organization.
Well, welcome everyone. We were going to start by asking you the same question to start off with tonight, and then we can see where the issues take us. So, which issue? I'll start with you, Daniel. Which issue, in your mind, brought out the most voters today?
Wow. So, Patty, I'm going to have to say, when I think about what drives people to the polls, I think about kitchen table issues. I think about the things that are impacting people's wallets, their homes and life the most. So I think it's the economy. I think there are a lot of things bubbled up in that economic issue, though, and particularly if you zoom in on the city of Wilmington, I think affordable housing, which is an issue across our state and our country, has been a large driver of what is pushing people to vote. Both candidates who are running for mayor, every candidate who's running for city council at large, and every candidate who's running for a city council seat has talked about the need to control our rent prices and to build affordable housing here in the state, in our city particularly. And I think that is driving a lot of the decisions because that directly impacts people's wallets.
Yeah.
Nothing like economics to make a decision.
Are we back to James Carville's famous statement, it's the economy, stupid?
You're right.
The economy, stupid.
So, Jane, we'll put the same question to you. What issue do you think brought out the most voters today?
Can I add to that question just a little bit?
Sure, please do.
Ms. Brady, I know that you've been doing this a long time. You were the Attorney General. You've gone through the elections. You've done this. Have you ever seen a gubernatorial election quite like this, from mudslinging to cost to the whole 9 yards? And I mean, have you ever seen anything like this?
Well,
for the state of Delaware.
I have been called one of the most negative campaigners when I ran against Joe Biden. They didn't like what I said. But I will say that it has been a very, very tough primary race on the Democrat side.
Yes, it has.
And I think that there are going to be consequences to that long term for the party, I think. There are going to be factions that have taken sides. And it's going to be interesting. You're going to be back to the division that we saw about 8-10 years ago in the Democrat Party, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out.
In my mind, Ms. Brady, I see Republicans kind of sitting back with their arms crossed saying, good, I'm glad the Democrats are finally throwing mud. We're going to sit back and our Republican candidates are going to do our best to pull this out in the fourth quarter.
Well, we watched the city like that.
Tire each other out.
We watch the city like that in every election because we don't matter there, right? So we watch the Democrats. But there's a plentiful amount of, there's so much opportunity, so little opportunity in so many Democrats who want to run for offices that I think you have an abundance of riches, so to speak. Not all of them are great candidates, but you have an abundance of candidates on the Democrat side that are causing a lot of these primaries.
Yeah, I think so too, but I still believe that the Republicans are gloating just a little bit as all these fists are being thrown. You're hoping. 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Gloat and hope, it doesn't matter. But I tell you one thing, and I'm not overly predicting, but I do believe that in some races, I will say that I sit back and the Republican candidates, I'm like, oh, they don't have a shot. You know what I mean? In some of these races, because it's Delaware, it's very, very blue. But in this race, it's not over at the primary. I think the Republicans still have a very strong shot, and I'm sitting back and watching and reporting on how these things go, but you are definitely not out of the race.
No, absolutely. I think Mike Ramone is probably going to win that primary, and I think he has a really good opportunity. He's well known among all the political circles, Democrat and Republican. He's been shown to be able to bring Democrats to vote for him because he's in a predominantly Democrat district that he's won for 16 years. And he's, depending on the primary winner on the Democrat side, our chances get better or not, a little better or a lot better, I think. Daniel and I were talking about it earlier.
Well, it's interesting. I think you're absolutely right. I think Mike Ramone's going to pull that Republican primary off.
I think so too. I agree.
And he is well known, well liked, and I think it would be an even more contentious general election for whoever the Democratic candidate ends up being, because not only is he winning primarily his Democratic district, but he is a swing voter in the House when he has served.
Right.
He has been shown to cross party lines. And I think right now we talk about coalitions, we talk about factions. I think that's what voters are looking for.
Yes.
Where do you relate with my issue regardless of
We're not
party?
just looking, but we're waiting because
Absolutely.
we know that these people exist. We're tired of the fact that, because you're red or you're blue, it's an issue. But we can't. I don't want to let you guys dominate. We have folks here on Zoom that
we can talk all day.
We can talk all day. We can talk all day. But
so we read the bios, and now joining us on Zoom is Dr. Samuel Hoff and Kim Wilson.
How are you doing, Dr. Hoff, Ms. Wilson? Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
It's a pleasure. It's definitely a pleasure. We're gonna throw that question to you. I don't know how much you heard of it, but we're asking overall, your opinions on the. Have you ever seen a Republican race? I'm sorry, a Democratic race happen just like this in the state of Delaware?
I'll start. Yeah, sure. I think my colleagues here have summarized it well. I think we've seen an unprecedented gubernatorial primary this time around, both in terms of the money coming in and the amount of negativity we have seen coming through on some of these races has been something that has historically not been the Delaware way.
I think it's $7 million just on the primary.
Right. It's a lot.
Is that what it is?
That's what I hear.
That's what. Yep.
That's
there is a lot.
$7 million on a primary.
That's just
election.
candidate campaigns.
Okay.
If you add in third-party spending, we're well over $10 million.
Yeah, we need to talk about the PACs that were in the state this year.
We need to talk about who the PACs are.
Yeah.
And DSEA.
And what they're supporting.
And DSEA, yes.
They spend a lot of money.
Everybody's spending money.
Everybody's spending money.
Left and right. Left and right.
There were a lot of ads on television, a lot of ads.
Dr. Huff, your opinion?
Well, when we look at all the issues that come up, I think there are really unique factors here, but I do want to compare one area to 2008, and that's spending. Folks forget about the Markell Carney race there, and in that race, there was a record set for spending at that time. And I think we're going to look at 2024 and compare it to that in terms of kind of going over a threshold of spending in state elections, largely precipitated by the profuse number of PACs, largely outside of the state, anonymous, and of course without the limits after the Supreme Court ruling in that area. And it's on another level now, and it indicates, as I've said over and over, that, forget this Delaware way. Just think of us as a metropolis that doesn't end at Philadelphia or the Wilmington corridor. I mean, it includes the entire state. The only question is, how is the information disseminated? But by way of PACs, by way of TV ads, by way of flyers, by way of telephone, I've got all four, as a matter of fact, in this race. So, there are a number of unique factors when we add them up.
You mentioned something. I have to cut you off, Dr. Hall. I apologize. Is the Delaware way, and this is for all the panelists, I've heard Delaware way for the past month and a half. I mean, it's pretty loud. Is it broken? Is it blown up? Is it done. I think it's done now. I think that the Delaware way of you pretty much know who your elected official is going to be months before the election, and you move forward and nobody talks bad about each other, and you spend enough but not a lot in regards to your campaign, and you move forward and everybody knows your dad and everybody knows your uncle, and if your name matches this. I'm telling people that are watching from other parts of the country that don't know the Delaware way, most towns have 6 degrees of separation. I think Delaware has 2 degrees of separation, right? The joke being is, it's no big deal to see the governor in Wawa, right? That's the type of area in which we live, and that denotes a way of politics that I don't think will be around anymore.
I think the Delaware way is really about how we govern after the election, and that's what's represented by the return day events where we bury the hatchet. I think that all campaigns have become more raucous, more raw, more expensive, and the whole tone of social media has changed the comfort level people have and how they speak. But after the election is what I think most reflects how we handle things in Delaware, because we do try and work together. We still have, and more, by the way, as the Democrat caucus has become so divided, it's almost equally progressive and used to be liberal, now looks conservative by comparison, caucus. But I do think that we try and work on the really important things together. And I hear Republicans get beaten up all the time when they vote on the budget, for instance. Why did they vote for that? But we have to make business work. We have to make our state work. And so I think the Delaware way, in my mind, really is about how we govern after the election.
Yeah, I don't think so much of the campaigns we see are blowing up the Delaware way. Right? I think this is how campaigns have been run, not just in Delaware, but in other places. I think we just are more aware of it this cycle than we were before. I will say I think it's been pretty nasty, but I don't think that is destroying our Delaware way. I think what that is doing is it's going to force us to come together on the things that really matter.
All right. Dr. Huff, your opinion?
I believe that the Delaware way has 2 components. The congenial part of that remains, and we hope that it stays, even though we've seen some mudslinging in this election, among others. But the other part is insider gets things done. And that's dead, as it should be. If no other symbol killed that, it was the slavery apology passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor in 2016. Because that insider status also prevented the kind of history-making potential that we have in this election. First African-American, first woman potentially as U.S. Senator, first trans woman as not only the first trans from Delaware, but the first trans member of Congress if that person wins her House race. So these are real earth-shaking things that I'm not sure were part of the definition of the old Delaware way in terms of who was qualified to run or serve.
Ms. Wilson, your opinion as well. I'm very curious.
Yeah, so when I think of the Delaware way, I sort of align with Daniel and some of his thoughts there. When we are talking about passing policy and working together post-election in Legislative Hall, when we get there in January, the idea of finding middle ground to me is the Delaware way. And, that is an art that takes a lot of work sometimes, depending on the issue, but the outcome is almost always positive in that we've moved the needle forward. And, I think when you talk to folks who are not in the political circle, they just want to see things get done. We'll go back to where we started. I think, Jane Brady had mentioned that people care about kitchen table issues, or maybe that was Daniel starting out. And that's where it's at. When we're talking about finding the middle of the road to solve those problems, I think that's to me to me is the Delaware way, is finding the middle ground.
What's the top kitchen table issue in your opinion?
Well, you're hearing a lot, anecdotally, my kids are out in the sports world. So when I'm standing on the sidelines of sports fields, we're hearing things like groceries cost a lot of money. Everything is up. The monthly bills are up. Housing is difficult. Healthcare, I hear a lot about. Those to me are the ones that I think we're hearing the most. I'm hearing the most about anecdotally from non-Politico people.
In regards to state elections, though, I mean, I trust me, I know things are getting expensive, but but the fact of the matter, can my governor really help with that? Not as much as my senator can. So from a state perspective, where do you think that the big kitchen table issues are? And Ms. Brady, I'm anxious to know afterwards your thoughts as well.
So I appreciate that point. I think what I would say to that is that I think oftentimes people who are not in our space, they don't frankly know the difference. They just want to see these issues resolved. In terms of who resolves them, if you talk to elected officials that go door to door, it is not uncommon for folks to not really know where that buck stops. So your point's well taken. I'm not sure people are able to delineate it the way that maybe the insiders are. In terms of state issues, I think education is going to continue to be a really big issue. I also think growth, our state is expanding at a rapid pace, particularly downstate with infrastructure. And that doesn't just mean roads and bridges. That means the ability to go see a doctor and not have to wait 2 years to do it. Those are going to be big issues when we come back in January, in my opinion.
Not to belabor the point on the gubernatorial race, but one of the other issues that is being thrown back and forth between between at least the two of the candidates are outside PACs coming in and spending money and supporting the candidates. Now, the candidates have, at least in one case, said that he is not being supported by, even though the ads are very negative, that he is not being supported. He is not directly linked to the PAC. But what do you, I'd like to know, and Dr. Hoff and Kim Wilson, I'd also like to know your thoughts about where PAC money is in Delaware races, and is that something that we should be concerned about?
Well, the Democrats didn't complain about outside of the state PACs when $275,000 came in back in the day when that mattered, and affected 2 legislative races and defeated Republicans, incumbent Republicans. So there's been outside money in our races. You look at not just the governor's race, there's a lot of outside money in the House race. There's a lot of outside money coming into Delaware. And, I tried to get outside money to come into Delaware because it was Biden's state, but honestly, the Republican National Committee didn't think we had much of a shot on most of the races. So I couldn't get outside money, but I certainly tried.
So are you saying the Republicans have no outside money helping them?
Oh, no, not at all.
That's what it kind of sounded like.
No. I tried to get big money into Delaware in the 2020 and 2022 cycles, and you just couldn't. There were too many other things at stake in places that mattered more in terms of the national result for me to get that. But there are very involved, like the Professor Huff noted, there's some firsts that might happen, and so they've been able to bring a lot of outside money in.
Absolutely. Patti, I don't know, but this is going to be a tough one. I think that this primary and the results that we're going to get in the next 1 minute? 1 minute we're about to get
polls are almost closed.
Polls close in 1 minute.
Close.
We hope they'll publicly post some of the data soon after, which like they have done in previous election cycles. I think a lot of people are going to be frantically sitting by their computers, hitting the refresh button at the DOE, Department of Elections website. But I'll tell you this, I'm not optimistic of a swift return in some cases. I was out early this morning and there were a lot of hiccups at polling locations.
Really? I'm very interested to know about that. I heard that there was some banter about some things that were going on, and there were some activists that came to town yesterday or a couple days ago in regards to it. And what's the feel? I live in Middletown. I went to my polling place today, went on social media, did the whole 9 yards, and it was smooth as glass. There was absolutely no problems, but I don't think everywhere in the state can say that.
No,
That's what I've heard.
And when you say hiccups, did people have a hard time voting, or what?
So I'll tell you, at my polling location, I take pride in voting on election day. I'm glad we have early voting here in Delaware. I'm glad we have an ability for absentee voting. But I take pride in going in there and voting on election day and feeling that energy. And so I go to the same polling location every year. And this year they had 3 elections workers, only 2 ballot printing machines. Both ballot printing machines were down for over 30 minutes.
Wow.
And we were just waiting there as they could try. And this isn't the fault of the the poll workers. They
No.
you know, most of
Which
them
are mostly
are
volunteers.
part-time volunteers and or,
Right.
you know, temp contractors. But they had called the Department of Elections and had reported the problem and had to wait over 30 minutes for someone to come. That's one issue. The next issue were rules about how close and how far you can be to the entrance of a polling location, where a lot of these campaigns, I'll tell you, especially for city council at
50
large,
feet, right? Isn't
where
it
it's
50
50 feet, where a lot of people don't know you can select 3 people for city council at large. So a lot of those campaigns are trying to tell people to remember that fact, and the election workers all have different interpretations of what electioneering is and how close you can do electioneering. And so I think there's going to be some delayed returns in certain locations for sure.
And weren't there, how many hundreds of folks were
Over 750.
were misregistered this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And you know, this is the opportunity to figure it out and get it right for the general election, because so much is at stake for every side. And I recall the last election where we ran out of ballots, which is unthinkable. And as soon as the first place ran out of ballots, you think the Department of Elections would have called every other place and said, how are you doing, and gotten them more ballots. 45 minutes to an hour, people waited in line to vote because they didn't have a ballot for them to use in the machine.
And there's no
that was
accounting for
inexcusable.
people who actually left.
I called for resignations and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I called for resignations.
Rightfully so.
I'm
Rightfully
sorry
so.
for the fact that, we had 2 people in Newcastle County, the Republican and Democrat, because we have the chair and vice chair, director and vice director, whatever they call it. And I called for their resignation because it was inexcusable. Once it happened at one place, it should not have happened at, I know there were 9, I think there may have been 11 places that ran out of ballot. That's inexcusable.
Yeah.
Once it happens, you check and make sure. So now is the time, this primary is the time to make sure we get it right for the general election.
I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree. I mean, voting is our right. It is a right that people died for. It is a right that's still, I'm going to be honest with you, that's still not secured in some parts of this country, that is faced with all types of issues, and we cannot take it lightly. We just cannot take it lightly.
That's right.
You mentioned about the issues, and I think they differ across the state. And down in Sussex County, I still think the EV mandate we had thousands of people coming out on the town halls on that. I think the Democrats are going to suffer for the EV mandate in Sussex County significantly in this general election. If education is not on everyone's mind in the city, it should be, because we have 17 schools in the state with single-digit proficiencies. That means you put 100 kids in Bancroft, fewer than 10 read at grade level, and 11 of the schools are in the city. We need to fix education, and more money is not the answer.
I couldn't agree with you more. The fact that we're dumping money into underperforming schools, money after money after money, and I am openly a Democrat, and I cannot ride with them on this. I think that the state really needs to step up from a Department of Education standpoint, and I know that the roles are, well, we don't do this, we leave this to the districts and all this other stuff, but the kitchen table issue for me absolutely is education.
We should have an entire program on education sometime, because there is so much going on.
Yes,
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it.
How do we think
Is
that...
profanity allowed during that program?
As long as my grandmother's not.
No, as long as your grandmother's
the FCC. How do we think the mayoral race in Wilmington is going to affect education?
Well, if Governor Carney is elected, he and I have had multiple conversations, or maybe I've challenged him. You know, we put $8 million into the budget for literacy specialists. We have reading and math specialists. Now we're going to have literacy specialists going to teach teachers how to teach reading. But we don't have any teeth in it. Mississippi was 49th or 50th in all the states in education until they passed a law that said you have to read at a third grade level to be promoted to fourth grade. They implemented it 5 or 6 years ago, and they're now 21st in the nation. If you teach a kid to read, they can learn. And not only that, they don't need you as much. If they can read, they can learn on their own. You free them up to learn about what they choose to learn about outside of what you're teaching them in school. It's so empowering. And I hate that word, by the way, but it is. And I just can't, until we put a focus on an objective and consequences to it, we're not going to make progress. Teaching kids to read is something we've been doing for 100 years.
Right.
But we're not.
Right. It's not.
We got to fix it.
We're not teaching it. We're just not teaching it well. Ms. Wilson, your thoughts?
So education is, I mean, to your point, I mean, education is a kitchen table issue. I have 2 children that are in middle school. I happen to live downstate, so a parochial school or a charter school is not an option for me. I have my feeder school, and that is that. So I too have very strong feelings. Luckily, I feel like my girls are in a decent place where they are, but to your point, I mean, whether you're in Kent County, Sussex County, or in the city of Wilmington, you care about education. I mean, it's something that we need to tackle. Certainly, the governor has been passionate about that. I know there's been a lot of talk through the Reading Consortium and other means on Wilmington specifically, which I don't claim to be an expert at living downstate. But what I know is that it's going to be, it needs to be more than just the city. Everyone has a stake in this, and all of our kids are clearly behind.
Dr. Huff, I'm interested to know your opinion as well.
Well, in the forums that they've had for the Wilmington mayor, they did discuss the K through 12 funding and childcare issues. But you talked about you asked specifically about the effect of education in Wilmington, and all these changes would have to be statewide. And the problem is that Wilmington has been the area that has objected to a lot of the reforms in education, particularly in lessening the number of districts. And as an expert in the area of desegregation in Delaware history, I can tell you that it was Wilmington that really led the fight against desegregation that precipitated the unprecedented inter-district busing policy in order for that to happen. And so we're still fighting those battles in some ways, but the most important thing in my view is to make much more efficient by way of money, by way of leadership, by way of policy initiatives, the number of districts. And the only way that can be done, as one speaker mentioned, is to imbue the Department of Education with the authority and the wherewithal, and have the next governor administration back that up.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some changes that need to happen. I look forward to the changes that will happen. I don't think that we can any longer continue the way that we're going without change. I have a feeling something's going to happen here soon after the election. I have a feeling that something's going to happen. I have a feeling that Delawareans are going to demand that something takes place in regards to education here. No longer can we continually be the last, and as you know, we're running at the bottom, and not just education, but several other things here within the country. We are not first. We are only 1 million people, so therefore we should be in enough testing facilities, enough test bases to make things happen and do things fairly quickly, and we are not, right? So we're going to give everybody a break here on DETV with your primary election coverage. Thank you so much for viewing and checking us out. Stay tuned. Be sure to go on all your social media outlets, drop in your comments, drop in your questions, drop in your concerns, and we will get them here real time and try to answer them. So we're looking forward to future conversations right here on DETV.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware, We are digital platform innovators, and we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Still searching for cheap gas prices? Dump the pump and ride DART. You can DART to your destination for only $4 all day. Let DART do the driving while you enjoy our free Wi-Fi available on all buses statewide. While scrolling through your favorite apps, don't forget to download DART's free transit app for real-time bus information and enjoy the convenience of contactless fare payment through DART Pass. So what are you waiting for? Dump the pump and try transit. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
Government doesn't make a move without an agenda, some type of plan. The problem is we haven't been on the agenda. Sometimes we're overlooked. Sometimes our interests aren't the interests of those in power. I'm your host, Kerwin on DETV's new show, The Agenda. We're going to do our best to ensure that you, Delawareans, are knowledgeable about what's going on in the Assembly. Federal government, local government, it doesn't matter. We're going to do our best to ensure that folks that make the agenda on a daily basis have to answer for it. Let them explain what they're doing. If it affects you, it's on the agenda. Welcome back. It's now 8 o'clock and the polls are closed. That's right. The primary election, I would say, at this point is over. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
I think so.
Fair to say. Dr. Huff, I have a question for you in regards to the Wilmington election. What are your thoughts on that primary? Dr. Huff?
The mayor?
Mayoral, yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of the last time that we had the uniqueness of an outgoing governor going local.
That's a very nice way to put it, the uniqueness of it. That was very nice. That was a very political answer.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a lesson in American federalism. And in that sense, it's a good thing. You know, I mean, going back to education, if you sing the dirge, you have to play the anthem. And there are a lot of good things about the education system in Delaware, starting with the teachers. And the students that are learning in those schools, are going to be the future generation. So we always have to keep that in mind. But you have two professionals. You have a former city treasurer. You have a public servant who's been involved as a House member and lieutenant governor, and certainly has a worthy background.
There's very few offices that he did not hold.
And in that sense, we can look at the ability of each one of the individuals to administer a city that size. And in that sense, I am impressed with the competence of both of the candidates. Where is the governor actually from?
Right here in Wilmington.
Claymont.
Okay.
Born in Claymont, lives in Wilmington now. He's a Claymonster.
Okay. I'm saying, because then, so you have some folks that are from the area. Then what separates them? I mean, they've been relatively congenial across the board. I think both of them have gotten to get out the votes.
I've moderated two of their debates, and I wouldn't surmise as congenial, but I think that they are very two spirited people and passionate about their ideas. I think that there has been a lot of history for Miss Jones Potter in regards to this city. I think that's fair, right, to say.
Yep.
And, the race, although is not, I wouldn't say contested, there's a lot of eyes on it. There's a lot of people in the community that feel disenfranchised and have been for some time. And I want to be the first to say, if you think that race doesn't play a factor in this, you're crazy, right? So it does, and it's very hard. And I wonder, Ms. Wilson, do you sit down there in Sussex County and think, what the heck are they doing up there in Newcastle County? These Northerners are going crazy. Like, what are your thoughts overall on how the mayoral race in Wilmington is surmising?
Look, so from my perspective, it's always interesting to watch city politics. What I know just from watching from the outside is it runs deep, and there is a lot of history there in terms across the board, not just that race, but across the board through city council. It's always fascinating to watch, and obviously from my perspective, we like to keep a close eye on what's happening there, both from a trend perspective. So when you think about our largest city in the state of Delaware, what policies are coming through city council, and Daniel could probably speak to that more in depth than I could, but it's definitely something that we watch closely. The city politics is definitely unique, regardless if we have an elected official moving from governor over to run or not. It's just a different type of race every single cycle. So it's always fun to watch and see how it shakes out. Clearly, both have been working hard, just sort of following loosely from downstate, and it'll be interesting to see how that turns out tonight.
I want commitment. Hold on. I want commitment. Who do you think is going to win?
I think Governor Carney wins that one.
Wow. Okay. That's a check mark there. Your thoughts?
That's a downstater.
From the downstater. Dr. Huff, what are your thoughts? Who's going to pull it out?
Well, Governor Carney had in that back in 2008, I lost in that traumatic election. I won't want to see him lose twice, but I just, the uniqueness is to the point where I'm not sure some of the local voters will take that. It might be his third term as governor. So I really have to look, I'd have to look specifically at his popularity right now as governor, which I think is probably in the mid 50s. And that tells you that it's going to be a close race.
Yeah, I think it is too. He is well known. I think both of the candidates are well known. We know what we're going to get. That may not be the best, but we know. but the devil you know is where the devil you don't. Ms. Brady, please tell us your thoughts if you can. I don't know if you can pick, but if you had to pick.
I think it depends on turnout.
Mm-hmm.
I do. If there's low turnout, then I think Carney wins. And if there's more turnout, then I think Velda wins. And it's going to depend on who comes out, because I think the standard traditional Democrats get people out easier, and Governor Carney is supported by the standard traditional Democrats. And so I think if turnout is low, more of his people come out, and if turnout is higher, more of Velda's people are there, and so we'll just have to see what happens.
Which the question of turnout has been the topic of many discussions around campaigns today. I can let you know that we're seeing a depressed turnout. City of Wilmington politics are different because City of Wilmington is the only municipal government that actually votes on the general primary day like every other elected seat. And so it is contentious because people are paying attention. Mm-hmm. And not to, doesn't hurt that we are the largest city in Delaware, right? Now it's less than most other major cities, but we are Delaware's largest city. I'll tell you this, when it comes to the mayor's race, it's unique in a few ways. One, yes, we have a former governor who is now coming to serve in a local office, but for the first time since I've been in politics, we have a head-to-head primary without a 3, 4, 5, 6 ticket split.
Right.
And so Kerwin, you said it earlier, this is coming down to a black versus white issue.
We got to say what it is. We got to say what it is.
We're seeing it out when we're at the polls, when we're talking to voters, when I'm just driving around the city of Wilmington, which I like to do frequently, this race, I think, more congenial than the gubernatorial race, yes, but still very tense.
Would you say that this is also about development, right? This is about development in the city, and I mean, let's just put it on the table, right? Some folks are worried that if one candidate is elected, Ms. Velda Potter, that development in the city is going to slow down. And it's going to come to a stifle in progress in this city, which we have seen, from crime to development and all these other things we have seen in this city, has been progressing over the past 4 years, maybe even more than that, right? And they feel that with current Governor Carney, as he fills the mayoral seat, that will continue. But is that fair for Ms. Potter? Is that fair for Ms. Potter to say that, oh, because I come in, things are going to stifle, that she's against progress? I don't believe that she's against progress. I don't believe that she's against seeing the city thrive and do other things. But I do believe that the disenfranchised members of this city, right, feel as though that unless there's someone that looks like them in the office, if there's not someone that they can relate to, there's not someone that is not coming to them in their area of the town, right, that looks like them, that their issues are not going to go by the wayside, that their issues are going to go by the wayside.
It depends on whether they, to what Jane said earlier, it depends on whether they come out and vote. If you look at the most recent numbers that were turnout for the 430 data drop from the DOE, what you see are strongholds that are perceived to be Governor Carney strongholds have already come out to vote. The strongholds where one would perceive Velda Jones-Potter is going to do well, similarly to where she did well in the three-way against Mayor Mike Pazicki and Justin Wright, the first, the second, the third, the sixth, and parts of the fifth, those are the areas that have depressed turnout. And so what we do know, unfortunately, is people who look like you and I, Kerwin, they're not usually the ones who come out to vote in the city. And so if they are inspired and excited enough, well, I think we will certainly see a different outcome this election than we have traditionally
seen. I want to be honest, what else can inspire them other than this election? If they're not going to be inspired by this election.
That's a great question.
If they're not going to be inspired by this election, I don't know. Yep. And again, the Republicans sit back and laugh and watch us go crazy here in the city of Wilmington deal with issues like this.
Well, I think one of the things that affects politics in the city is there are so many small factions. Mm-hmm. And the governor has not been a part of the disputes that occur between those factions in the past, like Velda and her husband have been. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if that will have an impact on it, because he's kind of above all that. But I will say this, if things are able to get better, the governor's been in a position to help the city get better.
He has helped funds, I would say, filtered through the House and through the Senate to come back here to the city of Wilmington for improvements. So yes, he has helped, but is that help?
Well, I think that strong individuals make strong communities, so I think kick people in the butt and get them up and working and on their own 2 feet is the way to make a strong community, my personal self. And I was born on the east side in Eastlake, went to George Gray Elementary, lived on East 28th Street before we moved to Smyrna, where I went to elementary school. So I'm a firm believer in that. And I don't think government is the answer to that. I think strong individuals are, and we're not building strong individuals with our programs right now.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you at one point. My personal opinion, and I'm sure I'll get comments and scrutiny on this, that if you have folks that are working, if they have an equal opportunity to obtain jobs just like everyone else, and they gotta grind it out just like everyone else, work at least 8 to 4, 9 to 5, or something like that, that community is going to do better.
But it's a matter of where you put your priorities. So the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor, has indicated and labeled 2 locations in Delaware, Wilmington and Dover, as skill gaps, meaning for the jobs that are available, the people who are there cannot fill those jobs, right? And so what we should be doing, and part of what I think the governor has started, and Velda has been talking about this at in some of the debates and talking to people is how do we match the jobs we have available with our workforce development programs, mandating participation, and making sure that people can become self-sufficient and move off of programs.
But we had to start the LEAP program, which teaches people, young adults, what they need to know to pass the apprenticeship exam because they're not getting it in school.
They're not getting,
it all comes back to education. We don't have skills because we don't have educated students graduating. We have students graduating who read at 3rd and 4th grade level, maybe. And so they have to learn to do the reading, math, and
then
writing
learn the
skills.
skill on top of that.
They have to, yes, because that's what they started the LEAP program for, to get people prepared to pass the exam you need to become a laborer in the union.
Dr. Wilson, Ms. Wilson, sorry, your thoughts?
Sorry, I had a bad connection for a second. Can you repeat the question? I only heard the end of Jean's response.
Well, we're talking about the city of Wilmington. We're talking about the educational levels. We're talking about
economic opportunities.
And economic opportunities there.
Talk about everything.
Everything. You're not going to miss it once you start talking about it. I guarantee you.
It's a free flow.
Thank you. It's foundational, right? I mean, kids. Again, I'm a downstater, so I take my colleagues and my friends that I work with and hear their experiences in the city and the suburbs of the city, and if kids don't have that opportunity to get a good education, if basic needs aren't met, we are going to have problems down the road. It's pretty foundational. Is that a city-specific issue? Yes and no, right? I think there's a concentration there, but there's also similar issues in rural areas downstate here. So I just want to be careful of the city. I don't pretend that's my expertise, but it is, that's what I would say. It's foundational. I will also say that the DOE website is up and down. And some of those mayoral numbers were in before it just crashed. So I don't know if you guys are looking at that, but you may be able to refresh and get it.
Yeah, I know that the folks at DTI, or Delaware Technology and Information Department there, is working very hard to ensure that the election results are up. But a lot of people are very interested in this and what's going on. And although they may not have went out to the polls, they love to know what's going on. Dr. Huff, I think it's going to be history tonight.
And, back to that Wilmington race, the question is whether the governor's popularity broadly translates to individual issues such as housing and infrastructure, which are vital needs in the city of Wilmington. If the voters believe that the governor and his administration have done a good job on that, then I think that's a feather in the cap. But housing is just in such vital needs statewide that it's not only a Wilmington problem.
No, it's not. It's a everywhere problem, regardless of your zip code here in the state of Delaware. Housing is an issue. There are a few zip codes where it's not, but for the most part, everyone is worried about it. We have some results up right now with 50% of the vote. Everyone can see it's Mr. John Carney, over 49% of the vote from Miss Velda Jones Potter. Now, is this the final, or is this?
No.
Early and absentee.
Early and absentee voters right there. So we're very interested to know how this goes.
It's a close race.
It's a very close race, as we were talking about before. But you know what? I'm not surprised. Is anybody surprised? I'm not surprised.
No.
I'm not surprised about that
Not
at all.
I think everyone expected this to be a close election.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's going to be a dead heat. It wouldn't surprise me if this came to a runoff or was decided in a courtroom. Like it would not surprise me. I'm hoping that it'll be a large enough margin so that isn't the case, but you never know.
So what do you think, since this is early and absentee, who do you think that benefits, Daniel?
I think early and absentee, as we see, it benefits the governor right now.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it benefits the governor.
There were 22,000
before
early
election day.
absentee
I think
votes,
this raises real
according to
concerns
one
for the
news
Carney
report
campaign.
today.
Yeah.
What was that, Dr. Huff? There was 22,000, you said?
Ballots, already cast in those 10 days of early voting, according to one media source today.
But I think the Carney campaign expected to come out at least marginally on top for of absentee and early voting. I mean, what we see, especially in communities, black communities, is they value going to the polls to push that
It's
button.
historical.
They want to make sure it's in.
Right.
That's right.
So I think it's way too early to tell.
Are you saying it's because the African American voter has been duped before?
Oh, Kerwin, I didn't say that.
I'm just saying, I'm bringing it up.
I think there's a level of security in knowing that I was there to push the button.
I thought it was only the right-wing extremists who challenge election integrity.
No, we're here. And we look forward to bringing everybody so much information. I want to thank the panel. Thank you so much for those on Zoom. Ms. Wilson, Dr. Huff, thank you so much for all your input in regards to this panel and making Delawareans aware, and everyone that's watching all throughout the U.S. Gotta love the internet that is watching this. Thank you so much for being a big part of this historical night here in Delaware. I look forward to seeing all of you on my show eventually and coming on as guests, and we're having conversation. And I look forward to having everybody back here in a few minutes, okay? We're going to have a whole new panel up here and a whole new discussion.
Did you?
I'm asking for 45 more years.
I'm asking for my baby girl.
I'm asking to see it up and running again.
I'm asking for all of us.
1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. Ask about a prostate screening that can detect cancer when it's most treatable, so you can ask for so much more. Visit healthydelaware.org/prostate or call 211 to learn more.
A new beginning, a second chance. Call it what you want, but this is what never giving up looks like. This is what finding someone who believes in you looks like. I thought Goodwill was just a store until a friend told me about Train to Gain through Goodwill's Job Resource Center. After 5 years away, I had a lot of self-doubt and fear about my future. But Goodwill had my back, and today, I love where I work. They matched me with an employer who believes in second chances, and now I have a new start thanks to Goodwill.
To learn more about Goodwill's career development opportunities, call today.
You know the why for state-of-the-art fitness centers and amazing pools.
But we're so much more.
The why is where Delawareans improve their health.
Where our communities get stronger.
Where everyone belongs.
It's where we battle chronic disease.
Where cancer survivors restore their mind and body.
And weight loss goals become lifelong habits.
We are the why.
Good for you and good for the community.
How did DETV start and how did you get here?
DETV started approximately 10 years ago in the basement of my home. I had an idea to show people of color doing great things, but what happened was I got to the point that I said, I'm gonna just show people all together doing great things. The motto and the moral was to bring people together instead of using media to rip people apart. And doing that, I just did a lot of hard work, a lot of free stuff, a lot of things of just showing people being themselves. I figured that media, and I saw that media wasn't doing that, so I just decided to give it a shot, not knowing that it would bring me to where I am today. I had a great journey doing it, met some amazing people, did some amazing things, worked on some amazing projects, and with just a lot of hard work and a bunch of sacrifice, I'm here today. I done worked on everyone's campaign in the state of Delaware, and now, I'm just doing what I do and doing it with friends. My biggest accomplishment right now would have to be this, hands down, without a doubt. We want to make sure that we inform the community wholeheartedly. So again, they can have all the information that they need. For more information, you can find us at detvch.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook under DETV. Be sure to check us out. Tell me what you think.
Hello.
Hello. Next up, let's say hello to our panel. Bob Byrd is a seasoned legislative expert with extensive experience in government and lobbying. Bob offers guidance on legislative government contracts and regulatory matters. He served as a state representative and vice president of Delaware State Chamber of Commerce and chair of the Delaware Economic Financial Advisory Council. Jennifer Tompkins is the president and CEO of the Metropolitan Urban League right here in Wilmington, and is a graduate of Harvard University, a master's in theological studies. Tompkins has also served as senior director at Trizen, a business consulting and leadership development company. And last but not least, and welcome, my political nemesis, Mr. Charlie Copeland, is also a member of the agenda, and the Republican Party has served in the Delaware Senate as minority leader and also as chair of the Delaware Republican Party. A member of the DuPont family, Mr. Copeland received a degree in computer science and physics at Duke University before returning years later for an MBA.
I'd suggest we start the panel with, as we did last time, with a general question that we're going to ask all of you to cover. We do have some early results, which we'll be putting up soon, but there's nothing definitive yet. Did you detect in this, the political landscape, did you detect any shifts in the political landscape in this election season? Or were there any surprises for you thus far? If you want to start with that, Mr. Byrd?
The most negative campaign I have seen in all my 50 years. And I go back to the Peterson-Buxton primary in 1968, and that was pretty nasty, but this one has been extremely nasty.
Can I just ask you to clarify something? Do you mean just the gubernatorial race or all the races and the tone of the primary season?
Oh, I think what has happened in the governor's race has gone down some to the lower races as well. Mm-hmm. You know, we've had a lot of issue primaries in this state, but I did not really see that this time. I didn't see a lot of candidates saying, this is what I'm going to do, this is what's happened that I want to change. I didn't see a lot of it.
But was it fruitful? I think it was fruitful, right? The negative ad campaigns led, let's be honest, by the Meyer campaign towards Bethany Hall Long's campaign. From the early numbers that we're seeing, it's pretty hard. Like there was a fruitful, it worked.
Negative campaigning always works at the very end if you do it right. But you have to be, this was different because this negative campaigning started 6 or 8 or 10 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's true.
This has been all summer.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
But if it's done correctly, it's very effective.
Well, yeah, I think the citizenry does not benefit from that.
No, not at all.
Because you have not heard a lot of debate about what's going to happen and about the issues. You've heard a lot of negativity from both sides, but you haven't heard a lot about the issues. And that's bad for the citizenry, I think.
Mr. Copeland, your thoughts? Any big shifts or surprises that you've seen?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift has been the amount of money. There were 2 political action committees that both raised about $1 million that were external expenditures on the gubernatorial Democratic primary. And I suspect that at least one of those was a hotbed of a lot of the negative campaigning, right? And this is the problem when you've got artificially low campaign finance limits and a big wide open political action committee avenue in which to go and an elections department that doesn't publish any data. So that you can't see that $1 million has been raised by an independent arbiter who's now dumping things onto somebody's head that they have no idea where it's coming from until 30 days before the primary, which is too late to respond. So it's the campaign finance system is eventually caught up to the state of Delaware. And by the way, I'm a firm believer that money should be in politics, right? I mean, we spend a lot of money out advertising potato chips, and that has, other than obesity and heart disease and some other issues, probably less of an impact than the education system, than the roads, than foreign policy and economic policy. And so we should spend money, but we ought to know where it's coming from, and it ought to be somewhat under the control of the candidates who are ultimately the ones who are accountable to the voters.
Damn it, Charlie, I told you I don't like it when we agree.
Well, one of the things that I will say, and certainly, I defer to my colleagues for their expertise, but one of the things I will say from the Urban League perspective, there has been an excitement around voting, an excitement around voter mobilization. There is a population of young people who are out pounding the pavement and making sure that folks are registered to vote and also are getting out the vote. And so I believe that this is definitely a trickle-down effect from what we're seeing on a national level of the excitement, of the diversity diverse candidates that are there, and then certainly trickling down to our state, obviously local municipality. But I'm excited about the voting, right? The turnout of voters for this election cycle. So that's, to me, I guess it could be surprising, but I'm just going to go with exciting.
But so far, voter turnout has not been, and some of our panelists on the last panel were talking about it, has not been what it needed to be. What it needed to be. So I love the excitement. I love the conversation that we're having in regards to voting turnout, but we're still not getting the numbers that we need for, I would say, effective elections.
No, I mean, I agree with you, right? There's always an opportunity to grow and expand that. And I, certainly defer to what I would see in history, right? We constantly, organizations like the Urban League, Black Voters Matter, other mobilization voting organizations are really pounding the pavement to ensure that folks are out and that they're voting and that they're registered. And so it's never going to be perfect, right? It's never going to be always 100%. But what we're doing, we are down on the ground to ensure that those folks are, one, registered and mobilized to get to the polls.
Can I bring up a topic? Look, can we talk a little bit about Delaware being a closed primary state and whether or not you all believe that has an impact on the numbers of voters and participation? As you likely know, you have to be a registered Democrat in order to vote in the Democratic primary. You have to be a registered Republican in order to vote in the Republican primary. 2 years ago, the number of independents, those registered independent in Delaware, now outnumbers the number of Republicans in the state. And so there's a large group of citizens that are not privy, that cannot vote today.
Right.
Even if they wanted to vote today, they can't vote today. Now, there was...
But how many of those independents, and this is all just us guessing,
Okay.
how many of those independents would you say were going to vote Republican, and how many of those independents would you say are going to vote Democratic, if given the opportunity?
Rule of thumb is that if your spouse is registered, you vote whatever their political affiliation is, even if you're an independent. So it largely breaks down on the registration numbers, but not exclusively. And to that point, I'm a data geek, as you know. You saw computer science and physics, so that's what I do. When Jesus 2,000 years ago said the meek shall inherit the earth, what he actually said was the geek shall inherit the earth. But nobody knew what that meant. They were like, what did he say? What was a geek? No, I think meek. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Independents now, so the largest voting bloc has historically been, over the last 20-some years, has been Democrats in Newcastle County. The largest voting bloc. There are more Democrats in Newcastle County than Republicans statewide. There are now more independents statewide than Democrats in Newcastle County. And the folks who've lost the most of that have been Republicans. But over the last 2 election cycles, Democrats have, their numbers have tailed off just a little bit as the number of independents has increased. So I agree, we have a failed electoral system. And the only issue that I would take to getting voters out is I believe that every informed voter should vote.
Yeah.
But if you're not informed, I just assume you stay home, because you're just messing up the numbers.
Stay home.
I'm just saying, if you are not
good.
Well, my point there is that you probably don't care. So you're going to go into the voting booth and you're going to vote based off of something other than, well, where does this candidate stand and where does that candidate stand?
So what's the difference between being informed and being misinformed?
Well, first of all,
I'm a misinformed voter.
You would have to define what's misinformed. What's the definition of misinformed?
Being lied to.
Really? An elected official, a candidate for office, is lying? I'm shocked.
But at the same time, is that vote, and I hate to say this, but is that vote as dangerous as a vote that has no educational backing behind it whatsoever?
I would contend that you have no definition for misinformed.
I have no definition?
You have no definition for misinformed.
Inaccurate
what
information.
You disagree with inaccurate information. So give me an example. On both sides. On both sides.
We can take a look at. And I'm not even saying in regards to party, but we can take a look at the numbers, right? Just the basic numbers in regards to an issue. If I say the numbers are this percent and the numbers are actually that percent, and I had malicious intent in regards to giving that information.
Sure, and how often does that happen?
See, this is the Charlie that I've been
How
with.
often does that happen?
This is the Charlie that I've been
with.
So that happens
you're throwing out a straw
single
man
day. That happens with every single ad on both sides.
And on both sides. And by the way, everybody has one of these little things in their pocket or on their desk, and they can say, you know what, I want to go and
But
look at
back
that
to
and
your
research
original
that
question,
information.
your or statement wasn't even a question; it was a statement
Right.
where you're saying
In
that
other words, go learn and then vote.
The voter that has the least amount of knowledge in regards to a candidate should stay home.
Again, it is their choice, right? Everybody's allowed to vote.
The problem is, who makes the decision about who's informed and who's not?
Right. Oh, sure.
Right.
I agree.
That's a huge problem.
Oh, Charlie Copeland does.
I do not. I've never kept anybody from voting.
I am very interested in know the thoughts of the Urban League in regards to that statement.
Well, certainly, this is the thing. We have to understand that our election process, and certainly all elections, are somehow guided by feeling, right? And voters do vote based on feeling. And so in regards to that, anyone who is informed, misinformed, has a feeling, right, going into those polls. I do not agree that if indeed you aren't informed that you should stay home, because again, those who are informed have a feeling, right? Just like the ones who aren't informed. I think it goes back to what, a colleague just said, right? Who are the ones who are really controlling the reins to make sure that those are informed, who's informed and who's not informed. And again, from the Urban League's perspective and other nonprofits, right, that's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are providing platforms and so that we can have informed voters across the state.
I think we can all agree that Delaware's election laws need to be looked at and need to be changed. I totally agree with Charlie that the finance limits that we have are probably need to be increased, although I think there's a negative part to that too, but we really need to do something about independent expenditures. What has happened on both sides in this election, and happened really in few elections previous to this, we really ought not be doing it in Delaware. And as far as parties are concerned and independents, I feel very strongly about that. If your primaries are for the parties, and if you want to be a member of a party and vote in a primary, it's not difficult to change your registration. Now, there are some time limits on it, and maybe we need to look at that. But I feel very strongly, if you're going to have parties, I mean, that's the reason you have parties. Now, maybe we can discuss whether or not we ought to have parties or not, and throw it all open and all of that. That's another discussion. But there needs to be, and I would encourage whoever wins tonight and whoever wins in November, that we take a really good hard look at all of our election laws.
We have someone online, Mark, who says there's a difference between misinformed and unengaged and uninformed. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would think so. But again, obviously you have to define some of those terms, right? And some people are unengaged because they choose to be unengaged, and that's okay, right? I believe in freedom, right? And you can choose to do what you want. And I think that what the Urban League does, where they energize folks and send them out into the neighborhoods, and they're informing people, saying, "Hey, look, the election's coming up. Here are the people that are out there voting or out there running, and here's their stance on this or that or something else, and you ought to go out and support this candidate." Right? I think that is informing voters. But when somebody who is being purposefully disengaged, what information is their vote telling us about what policies the citizenry want? Mm-hmm. None.
Mm-hmm. So how many of us up here have strong ties to Wilmington, would you say? All of us on the panel? One way or another have strong ties to Wilmington?
Sure.
What do you think of the Wilmington race? I mean, we've been talking about it for the most tonight, but I love to get different perspectives. I know, Patti, you are a resident here in the city as well. And so what is it with this race? How do you think it's going to turn out?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking everyone.
Just want to be sure before I open my mouth in front of a microphone.
Putting it on the web.
That's right. Well, I believe that some of our panelists have rightly said tonight that it's going to depend on the turnout. Mm-hmm. That it is, and I hate to oversimplify this race and say it simply comes down to race. Mm. But there have been, races in the past, in Wilmington's past, where the African American vote was split because there was a number of candidates running, and the feeling of the community was that that maybe the community ought not do that again, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, my thoughts. I have to come back to. representation in the city, right? And then when I think of representation in the city, I think of economics. And with economics, it makes it very plain. There are underserved areas, there are issues, but I don't think that we can have this race, and I like Governor Carney a lot. I like Ms. Velda Jones-Potter a lot, but it comes down to race. I'm sorry, John.
I have been very surprised, and I've watched elections, mayoral elections going back to the 60s. There has not been, in my mind, in what I've seen over the years, there's not been as much interest in this mayoral primary as I've seen in previous mayoral primaries. Yes.
What would you attribute that to, Bob?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I thought this would be, my last stop today I was up at PS, and I drove down from PS down here, right? And I particularly counted the yard signs. I saw very few. I saw very few. Not like previous elections when there were yard signs everywhere. And you did not hear, now have you heard a lot of it, have you heard some chatter about it? Yeah, but not as much as I've heard in previous years. And maybe that's because the citizenry's changed from when I was a younger man, I don't know. But I would just say my observation at my age is there has not been as much interest in any of the politics this year as I've seen in previous years.
But I would think if we were using that methodology, then it would be a landslide one way or another. But the early polling data that we're getting, it's darn near 50-50.
No, and I think it's going to be a very close race, and I think that, race is going to be, it's a part of it. Sure. It's a part of it.
Very interested to know the Republican side of this.
Yeah, because our candidate, that's right, we don't have one.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
But I would submit this, and I agree with Bob that there isn't that much excitement for lots of reasons. One, at the national level, that the presidential race, nobody's happy, right? And then you look at the Democrat primary on the gubernatorial side, where polling showed that Bethany all along was negative ranked, right? She had negatives that beat her positive. In the lingo, she was flying upside down, and the only thing you can do when you're flying upside down is to flip the other guy over too, right? Drag him down. So the negative campaigning on her side was going to eat in, and then you come down to the mayoral race, and the city is to outward perspective, okay. Right, and it's not, but that's what the generic perspective is, and so there's just a malaise, if you will, I think, and I think you're going to see it all the way through November.
Very interesting.
I just want to step in here just to say, certainly, great points, but I want to be very careful not to just minimize the mayoral race down to race, right?
Absolutely.
I do believe that informed voters have done their homework and will make their informed decision that's best for them.
And the other one should stay home. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say any of that. I
think that's a fair choice.
But just want to be careful in that obviously we do have extremely informed voters who are not only informing and themselves, but also mobilizing an entire community, right? And I think they take into account more than just the race of a candidate, and look at the policies and the issues and all of that. That's wrapped up into that. So just wanted to add that portion because we do have educated voters here in the state of Delaware.
Yeah, we do have educated voters, and let me tell you something about the voters of the city of Wilmington. They don't need a whole lot of social media and all this stuff that's going on. They just have to open their front doors and talk to their neighbors, and they know exactly what's going on. And we're talking about a city that's, correct me if I'm wrong, is only 8 square miles, right? So the information gets around. They may not tune into DETV news and know everything that's going on in the community, but they do know what's going on their block, right? We have strong representation from city council here, and also state elected officials here that walk the streets, and it's a more condensed area. You are going to see your elected officials even more so than what you're going to see in other parts of the county. So
Absolutely.
I do believe that Wilmington voters are a little different.
Yeah.
They're a little different.
Sure.
And I think we're seeing that tonight in the polls. These are early feedback, but I think that, people are going to make a statement tonight in regards to who they want to represent, although I do believe they may be somewhat misinformed as far as what the overall objective is for those candidates, right? I believe that some of this propaganda has been pushed that one candidate may have a stifling effect to the city's growth. The city is growing versus the other. I don't believe that that's true, but I think that some are jumping on that bandwagon. I think that's fair. I don't know. But we're going to find out here fairly soon what's going on. We're going to begin to know what that thinks. I look forward to having a little bit a deeper discussion, everyone here, about which we didn't break into, and that is the county executive race. One candidate I can honestly say has made themselves known, and that's Mr. Marcus Henry, throughout the county. There is not a bus, billboard, TV commercial, bumper sticker, event that either he is not at, representative he's not at, and I think that Ms. Nagel just didn't come as strong. I think it's going to be a landslide.
She went negative at the end, though.
But did she do it correctly?
Well,
We'll know very shortly. But that's just a Kerwin projection, right? I think Marcus is going to run away with this, but we'll see. I think that, again, Delaware is one of those places that you have to campaign strong. It matters how many of those signs are in the yard. I really do.
And you have to knock on doors.
And you have to knock on doors. We are a windshield community. That means you got to drive to get anywhere in the state. And it is important that overall, wait a minute, we have this here right now. So far, sorry for the interruption, folks. John Carney has 55% of the vote. And as of right now, Ms. Velda Jones-Potter has only 44% of the vote. So we're seeing it right now in live streaming. He's beginning to pull away, ladies and gentlemen. He's beginning to pull away.
What's the percentage of the vote that's in? Do we know that?
15% of the vote is currently in.
So still pretty early.
Still early. But I'm sure there were some cheers at the Carney camp after getting that information, and it justifies some of those doors being knocked on. It really does. It really does. But again, why do you think, briefly, Charlie, there wasn't a Republican candidate in this race?
Well, because if you can do basic algebra, you know the answer.
Was that
to
a
the question.
shot?
Well, no, not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, just the opposite. The problem that Republicans have today in the state of Delaware is simply that the gubernatorial race, the Newcastle County executive race, and the mayoral race of our largest city are all during presidential years. And so you have presidential turnout, which, by the way, brings with it more less informed voters who might not look down ballot to see what's going on. We're not actually debating, Delaware. We're talking about Orange Man bad and whether Kamala can string together the right census tonight, right? I mean that's but we're not talking about Delaware.
Shots fired, ladies and gentlemen. Shots fired.
I talked about
right
Orange Man, so I mean those shots fired on my side. So, but that's what we're debating, and we're not debating education, transportation, policing. And all the things that we do, health and human services, Medicaid, Medicare delivery in the state, health care insurance.
Which costs are, for this state, I did not know until I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago that was talking about it, and it is absolutely just mind-boggling the amount of money that we spend on health care in the state of Delaware, and it definitely needs to be discussed. We know that it is close to 9 o'clock, and the other debate is about to start. The presidential debate. Here we go. The presidential debate is about to start, and we know that we're going to
lose. Mics turned off?
we're going to lose some of you to that. We are expecting that, but we hope that you stay tuned. We hope that you stay tuned to this experience as well, and be sure to post your questions below. And we're going to get them on the air and break them down for each candidate. Don't hold back, especially for the Republicans. Make sure that you're giving some really tough questions for them to answer tonight. I want to see if Mr. Copeland will sweat. Jen, anything for the takeaway from this?
This has been quite the discussion so far. And so certainly, again, what I want to reiterate, there is a population, and we do have populations of educated voters here in the state of Delaware. And just, I'm really excited to see what the results will be in that, I believe that the people in the end will make the right decision. So,
God, I love our people. I love our people. Any other surprises in regards to races real quick before we leave?
Oh, I think some of the legislative races could be surprising tonight.
Okay.
Are some
Some
incumbents
losses.
in trouble? Are some incumbents in trouble?
Oh, well, you know, I've heard that incumbents are trouble. Incumbents are saying they're not in trouble. You're not going to know they open the voting machines.
Yep.
You know, the night I
Fair
lost,
enough.
the night I lost, I thought I'd won. So you know.
You never know until it's over.
No, I lost.
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying in your life.
So right now, congressional race, 16% of the vote, only 16% of the vote early on is going to Mr. Earl Cooper, where 80% of the vote is garnered by Miss Sarah McBride and 3% of the vote to Elias Weir. Again, I don't know if this is only 15% of the vote that's been gathered so far, but that's where it currently stands. Sarah McBride way ahead, 80%. I don't even know if she's looking in her rearview mirror at this point, but it's pretty much a wrap on this part. We're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. Please stay with us as much as possible. If you go over to the debate, please put in the chat. Let us know what's going on that side. Make sure the mics are turned on over there as well. All right, so stay put. We'll be right back.
How did DETV start and how did you get here?
DETV started approximately 10 years ago in the basement of my home. I had an idea to show people of color doing great things, but what happened was I got to the point that I said, I'm gonna just show people all together doing great things. The motto and the moral was to bring people together instead of using media to rip people apart. And doing that, you know, I just did a lot of hard work, a lot of free stuff, a lot of things of just showing people being themselves. I figured that media, and I saw that media wasn't doing that, so I just decided to give it a shot, not knowing that it would bring me to where I am today. I had a great journey doing it, met some amazing people, did some amazing things, worked on some amazing projects, you know, and with just a lot of hard work and a bunch of sacrifice, I'm here today. I done worked on everyone's campaign in the state of Delaware, and now, you know, I'm just doing what I do and doing it with friends. My biggest accomplishment right now would have to be this, hands down, without a doubt. We want to make sure that we inform the community wholeheartedly. So again, they can have all the information that they need. For more information, you can find us at detvch.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook under DETV. Be sure to check us out. Tell me what you think.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, with 25% of the vote in, we do have a declared winner. Sarah McBride has been declared the winner. To no one's surprise, she's got 80% of the vote for the Democratic nomination to Delaware's lone congressional seat. And we understand that Kathy McGinnis in the 14th House District is currently in third place. We will, out of 3 candidates, we will get you those numbers shortly.
So who's surprised about Sarah? Anyone surprised about Sarah? No?
Did she go down and get her office yet?
I'm surprised it's that close.
I don't think there's any problem.
Some people say it's easy to win when you have the playbook, right? When you know what's going on, and she's definitely tied in. I knew that it was going to be a landslide when we saw her at the Democratic convention. When the presidential nominee is making sure that you're standing by her side, you look pretty good back home.
And you're endorsed by Nancy Pelosi, and
that doesn't hurt.
And you have a lot of money.
Doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
and it comes back down to economics. We talked about that.
Well,
right?
it's not only that, right? Otherwise, we would be talking about President Bloomberg right now. So
Right.
you do have to have the ability to appeal to voters. So she certainly has that, but this is not a surprise to anybody.
Not a surprise. So how strong will your candidate be on the Republican side?
Well, I think our candidate is a good, strong candidate, but once again, it comes to a numbers game, and she's got money, and she's got voters, right? Sarah McBride does. So
So you're quitting already?
No, not in the least. I think the Republican candidates, if there are issues in this state and in this country, Delaware is, as I think everybody knows, is not a Trump place, right? In 2016 and 2020, it was pretty obvious that Delaware.
Well, it doesn't hurt when the president's from the state.
Well, in 2016, it didn't help that he wasn't, right? So, or she wasn't. So if you want to win, you've got to really take some very hard positions that have broad appeal. And I think one, education, the education of the state of Delaware. I mean, if I were running for governor on the Republican side, I'd have a flatbed truck with a couple of speakers on it, and I would camp out on Sundays, maybe even Saturdays, all around the city, just drive around with big things talking about, the number, that 10%, 1 out of 10 students in the city schools are proficient in English or math. And I would just be going around talking about that and say, if you want the education system to educate your child, you need to elect me because I'm going to shake this thing up. And I would pick one or two other topics and be very, very bold and outspoken and create a large distance, a lot of white space between me and the other candidate. I don't know that I've seen that out of the Republican candidates.
This is a topic that I'm furious about in regards to education. I've told several people, my parents are combined educators in the state of Delaware for over 60 years, 30 some apiece. And I know education. I'm a product of Delaware education. I know that's a scary thought, but I've done well for myself, and I don't see that continuing here anymore. But now, as a taxpayer, I'm funding this debacle every time that I pay my taxes. My children are educated here in Delaware schools, so I have skin in this game. But I can honestly say that we are not doing the right thing. I charge whomever becomes governor coming up here next, and especially on the Democratic side, it cannot be business as usual at the Department of Education.
And sadly, I think it will be.
No, I disagree.
They'll fritter around to the edges.
I disagree.
They'll make some announcements and they'll say, we'll put reading specialists here, we'll put math specialists there, or we'll put somebody in charge of something. But at the end of the day, you have a system of
the Delaware way will not sustain when it comes to education. Mr. Byrd, you made it very clear that you have not seen a lot of yard signs as you're going through the community. But what I have seen is a lot of most of the conversations that I've had with people about we're calling them kitchen table issues or just what folks are just pissed about. And it has been education like none before. I have not seen this. I don't know what it was like when the busing was occurring and how pissed people were because of that. But I can tell you from tax-paying Delawareans, we're just as pissed when it comes to education. I don't know. Jen, your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's also incumbent upon the people to certainly hold the candidate responsible, right? And so it's just, this is one part of it, making sure, obviously, the candidate gets elected, gets the votes, all of that. But once the candidate is in office, right, whether it's any stage of this office, even up to the national election, that we have to, as the people, hold that candidate responsible. And so at the Urban League, we do a report card each year in which we do grade our elected officials and where they stand on education, their progress there, where they have stood on workforce and their progress there. And then also even a big issue is housing in the state of Delaware, right? And where they stand there. So, this is just one part of the journey in this. And whoever occupies those offices, we as the people are responsible to hold them accountable for what has been promised and for justice.
So what is the Urban League going to do for education and making sure and holding our governor accountable?
So one, again, talking about that report card, because again, that goes out to the community to inform folks that, hey, these were the promises, right? But now how has the governor delivered on those promises? So that's number one. But number two, again, working with the state and also other nonprofit organizations to bring those direct service programming to actually our schools and also additional funding into the state. And so again, this is, just one part of the journey. This is one part of the journey, getting folks elected. We have to be able to hold them accountable. And I'm going to be very honest, this is where we roll up our sleeves and get to work.
We're after 9 o'clock, right? So let me say some things that are probably going to get me in trouble.
Oh, hey, welcome to DETV. We are not strangers to Trump.
I made a speech when I was a member of the House of Representatives in 1977, and I said, we are facing the busing order had not come down, but we lost the case, okay? And I said, if we're going to make things right for Delaware, we have to solve this problem in this building, meaning Legislative Hall, okay? There was a feeling within Legislative Hall because of the Positive Action Committee, which wanted to fight everything until the very end. And they said, if we don't do anything, we can get this overturned at the Supreme Court, okay? I said, you're not going to do that. If we're desegregating everywhere else, we're going to desegregate Delaware. And we, as legislators in Delaware, need to address this issue. We didn't do it. And we've been paying for that decision for 50 years. And there have been some modest changes and some things that have worked over the years, but when they've been done by the special interest groups who they affected. So the school administrators want some things. The unions want them. DSEA wants some things. The private schools want some things. We now have charter. We now have charter. We have a way for you to transfer in and out. All of that was done as a way around the fact that the lower schools were not being addressed. I've always worried about the C student because I was a C student.
You're not alone, my friend.
I was a C student, and I got educated in Delaware, and I did all right.
I did all right.
I did all right. But we have not worried about that C student, in my opinion, over the years. And until you get somebody in there, and until you get a group of people who were willing to make those major changes, including the funding system, which goes back to the 30s, I think, until you can get a group of people who were willing to make major changes, and people sitting at that table who are willing to compromise and lose, until you get that, you're not going to fix education in Delaware. That's my candid opinion.
And so when you talk about that it has to be done within the General Assembly, and I'm a believer in the primacy of the legislature, but I will contend that when we're finished tonight, over 90% of the incumbents will be the candidate expected to win in November.
Correct.
And these are the same people who haven't done anything to date, and at Delaware's education system, educational results now rank fourth worst in the nation, and yet we spend in the top 6 or 7. So we spend a lot of money, we get no results. And those kids are not going to get jobs. And our economy, which has been flat since 2016, there's been no economic growth in the state of Delaware. And by the way, in Newcastle County, there's been no economic growth since 2000. You're going to see that economic non-growth continue. And yet, you talk about holding voters, elected officials accountable. John Carney is the governor. He was a lieutenant governor. He was a congressperson, and he's up in the mayoral race. Where's the accountability there? And again, over 90% of the people running today, and in any given year, it's about 97.5% of incumbents win. So you get turnover when somebody leaves.
And that's what I was talking about before. And I like I said, I can't stand it when I have to agree with you, but the
facts are a tough thing.
The Delaware way, and that just seems like another example of it. But I'm hoping that it's broken. I'm hoping that it's broken, but it can no longer continue. And it works with such, I don't know, just this. Oh, it's just going to be the way it is.
I'm a defender of the Delaware way.
Oh Lord.
And you're not going to get anything done unless you've got a Delaware way, because sooner or later you got to get people in the room who are willing to talk to each other.
But what are we getting done if we're at the bottom 4% in regards to education, and we're spending whatever our statistician here said, so much more? What are we? I mean, really, what are we getting done? If in fact the county hasn't grown, if in fact people can't afford houses and people are being pushed out and all these other things that are happening, what are we doing?
The Delaware way.
What are we accomplishing?
The Delaware way is not working in education. I'll admit that.
Okay.
And I'm a defender of the Delaware way. I did a bill this year on unemployment compensation, okay? We had to raise money to put money into the fund, okay? So that the unemployed could get benefits, and we had to raise the amount because it hadn't been raised for a while. So we raised the unemployment compensation number to $500 a week, and we put some more taxes in it, okay? We worked that bill out over a 9-month period between legislators, cabinet secretaries, members of the business community, and labor. And nobody knew about it. We did it in the back room because that's where you have to do things like that.
That's politics.
That is politics. And that's the Delaware way. And there's a whole lot of instances where it's worked, but it has not worked in education, and I'll agree with you on that.
Okay, before we move on, I understand we have some results ready that we're going to take a look at.
The Lieutenant Governor, Sherry Dorsey Walker, is 30% of the vote, and Kyle Evans Gay, 47% of the vote, and Debbie Harrington with 14% of the vote.
This is with 11% of the precincts reporting.
Very early. For Wilmington City Council, Letitia Tish Bracey, 28% of the vote. Daniel Covington, 14% of the vote. Alexander Hackett, 19% of the vote. Miss Maria Cabrera is 24% of the vote. And Miss Wayna Dobson is at 12% of the vote.
And 3 of those win? Is that
Three of the
correct?
top vote getters.
3 of the top votes, right? Currently, with 50% of the vote in, it looks like a landslide here. Karen Hartley-Nagel is 38% of the vote, and Marcus Henry with 61% of the vote. And we kind of expected
You
that.
predicted that.
Yeah, I predicted that. I called that out.
You called that early.
I hope he saves me some cake. I am a fan. I want to talk. I want to flip the script because so many people have flipped the channel, right? So let's talk about the presidential debate a little bit, right? What are the expectations for tonight? Because it hasn't happened yet. Oh, look, she's over here chomping at the bit. What are the expectations tonight? I won't give mine until you give yours, but I think that it's going to be monumental. But I also don't think they're going to get a lot accomplished. I think it's a lot of build-up, and it's going to be too much build-up.
I kind of agree with that, and I think that sometime between now and November, I think Trump is going to make a major error, and that'll be the end of the election. But I don't think it's going to be tonight. I think he's going to be under control tonight.
I'm trying to imagine, with all the things that have happened and that Trump has done, frankly, what kind of
Do you mean his criminal
happening would have to be a major error? What could?
Besides 36 felonies?
Besides shooting somebody on Fifth Avenue. What is the error that's going to
He didn't shoot anybody on Fifth Avenue. He said he could.
He said he could.
He said he could shoot
I
someone
think
on
he
Fifth
could
Avenue.
say something that is really negative as far as racism is concerned.
Okay.
I think he could make a stupid statement like that at some point.
It'll probably be someone with black jobs that'll figure it out.
I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I really don't. I think that he's said so many things, and that's kind of baked in. And he's going to to answer your question about the debate tonight. Trump is an open book, right? I mean, he's given all these interviews to folks from across the spectrum, and he has these rallies and all this kind of stuff, and he's got go-to lines that he uses all the time. And I suspect that the Harris campaign has identified 4 or 5 or 6 of those things that they pretty much expect him to say tonight, and they've got some zingers to come back so that he'll say something, and she'll have a zinger. Back like when Reagan said, "I'm not going to hold my opponent's youth and relative inexperience against him back in the time," or
JFK.
right. I knew John Kennedy, and you know John Kennedy, right?
You're
I mean,
no
so
John
because
Kennedy,
they knew,
right.
and Dan Quayle had said that line at all of his events, and so they knew he would say that, so they crafted a zinger to flip it on him, and I think that that's what will happen tonight. Whether they and because we're now a TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Delaware TV nation. all those snippets, those 30-second things will get replayed, and Trump will have some against her because he's quick on his feet. He's, by the way, I don't think he's particularly good at debater because I don't think he's actually very good on the facts, right? You know, he doesn't know how many students are getting Pell Grants or any of this kind of stuff. He doesn't care. And so he'll have some zingers, and she'll have some zingers. And at the end of the day, we'll find out whose zingers affected the 42,000 votes in 3 states that will affect the outcome of this election.
My biggest concern about the debate is, does it matter? I mean, in my opinion, Hillary Clinton cleaned the floor with him in the debates in 2016, and it didn't matter, apparently. So does it even matter?
Does it affect his base? I think is the question. Does the results of the debate affect the Republican base in regards to their decision on whether or not to support Mr. Trump? I think that's kind of what you're getting at or what you're saying. I don't think it matters to them. I think the crazier he gets, the more his base becomes energized.
But this is not a debate of those who have already chosen a side, right? This is the debate of those who are undecided. That's what tonight's performance will. This is what tonight's debate and performance will be based on.
And if you believe the polls, and I question some of that, but that there's about 18% of the electorate that says they haven't made up their mind about Trump, and there's about 40% of the electorate that says, I'm not quite sure about Kamala. Not who they're going to vote for per se, but they want to know more, and they don't know enough. Where those 18% that don't know enough about Donald Trump are, I really couldn't begin to tell you. Evidently, they're out there.
They're the uninformed voters that
evidently or misinformed. But so his ceiling is lower than hers, but then you've got to get people to the polls, and so who's got the excitement come November? So I think this debate has some important aspects to it, and I think that primarily more for Kamala Harris because she has the ability to raise her ceiling more than he does, but she has not actually been a particularly adept debater, which is why she bailed out so early in 2020, and so we'll see. And again, I don't think he's a particularly good debater. He just has some curb appeal that has been very successful and good for him, and he's funny.
The debate
he's attention getting.
It's not be all and end all, but you got to do it, and you got to get through it.
And I'm going to ask the question, and you know, I'm not saying one way or the other, but we are very aware of what Mr. Trump can do if, in fact, he becomes president of the United States. We have 4 years that shows. I think that's fair.
Strong economy. A COVID vaccine. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I thought that was bleach and a light. Wasn't that his COVID vaccine?
First of all, that is a misinformation.
He said it on live television.
He did not. Yeah, anybody can go Google it, look at YouTube. You can see the video.
Up there,
Kerwin is spreading misinformation.
I'm just saying, and Dr. Fauci is a tyrant.
You can go look it up. It's on YouTube.
I'm just saying what the man said. So my question is this. My question is this. And I'm going to start with you, Ms. Tompkins. Is Kamala what America needs?
Is Kamala what America needs?
She is the candidate, but is she what America needs right now?
I think if we're thinking in terms of the change in which America needs in order to move forward, yes. And so when you have the old regime, so to speak, and some of the things that have happened under the Trump administration, and then certainly having a candidate who is looking to ensure abortion rights and, you know, looking to ensure to expand the workforce and, you know, all of the things in which young people are like screaming, hey, this is what we need. But yet, you know, I get it. The feeling is the economy isn't great because when I go and get groceries, it is extremely expensive. But what Kamala represents and the ideals and what it could be is what America needs. And so that's all I would leave it there, because again, the Urban League does not endorse a candidate. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Make that very clear, Charlie. Make
They're
that very clear.
501c3 nonprofit, so they're not allowed to by tax law.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Said,
entirely welcome.
Thank you.
I made
Thank
it
you. But
very
ideals.
clear, Miss Tompkins. I didn't say the Urban League. I said Miss Tompkins. Is that what America needs? I've been told that we have some results. Do we have some results to bring up? Drum roll, please. 54% of the vote right now. We have 65% in. With 54% of the vote, Governor John Carney is leading Velda Potter with only 45% of the vote for the mayoral race in Wilmington for the Democratic primary. Right now, and we actually, 65%, we actually have her in studio, believe it or not. Ms. Letitia Bracey is leading 29% for Wilmington City Council at large. Danielle Covington, 14%. Mr. Alexander Hackett, 19%. Maria Cabrera, 23%. And Wayna Dobson with 12%. That's with 65% of the vote already in. So my question is going to continue. Patty, is Kamala, and you don't have a 501c3 that I know, so you can answer the question completely. Is Kamala what the country currently needs?
You know, I was one of those folks who said when people started asking Joe Biden to step out that it had to be Kamala, that when he stepped aside. I thought that I respect her. I think she's highly qualified. I think if you compare her resume to some of the resumes of gentlemen who have served in that office, that she has more a breadth of experience than they do. I think that she's a smart woman, and I think that she is what we need right now. And I'm hopeful that she will be what we see leads the country for the next 4 years.
Mr. Copeland, do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is what the country needs to be, and how the country needs to be led currently?
So I'm a firm believer that your chief executive officer should have come into office with chief executive officer experience before, which is why when we elected governors, I think we'd had better results from the executive branch, from the president, than when we've elected senators. Now, Kamala Harris has been vice president, but vice president, as John Adams once famously said, is about as useful as a warm bucket of spit. And so you're really only given the job to do by what the president says that you should do. And John Adams, back in that case, was given nothing to do. And so and she was given some things to do, and that didn't turn out all that well. Now, there are lots of reasons for that, so I'm not going to pin that all on her. But what I would submit is that the country is very much in need of a leader who will come out and explain where we are going. What is the plan? What are we going to do in Ukraine and Russia? What are we going to do in Israel and the Gaza Strip? What are we going to do about education? What are we going to do about jobs and the economy?
What are we going to do about immigration?
Right, but she's had one press conference in 37 days. This is only the second time she'll be publicly accessible. That is not somebody that is speaking to the American people regularly saying, this is what I'm going to do. Now, you can look at what Trump says and says, I don't like that. But at least he comes out and says it. The one thing I'll say about Donald Trump, because there are a lot of policies that he's promoting that I don't like at all. But the one thing I'll say about Donald Trump is that the last thing he wants to happen to him is to be embarrassed. If he gets embarrassed, that is the worst thing, in my opinion, to him. And so he will do anything necessary to avoid being embarrassed. And I think that the whole January 6th thing is he was embarrassed about his loss, so he's saying, I'm going to redirect and I'm going to do all this stuff and say there was this, that, and the other. But I think that when it came to things in foreign policy, he didn't want to be embarrassed, and so he would be willing to pull a trigger when somebody else might not, or be willing to say, I'm going to go meet Kim Jong-un in North Korea to cut the deal because I don't want him sending missiles across Japan because that's embarrassing to me. And so now I am not suggesting that that may be the best way to run a government, but at least it's an executive way to run a government. So I wish that, and you know, I don't get a choice in that, but that we had a candidate on either side that actually had real government executive experience, the governor of Kentucky or the governor of Michigan or the governor of New York or the governor of Florida or Texas or Utah. These people have executive experience. They've been elected. They've had to make decisions. When you're a legislator, you can go not voting. But when you're the executive, you can't do that.
So when you're the chief law enforcement executive for a state with that is basically the 5th largest economy in the world, that's not an executive. That's not a leader.
Not really, no. You're making decisions as to what who your prosecutors are and what cases they're going to prosecute, but you're not saying, okay, I've got riots in the street. What am I going to do about it? No, what you're doing is you're prosecuting or not prosecuting the people that were arrested in the riots in the street.
As the AG,
I disagree.
that you are making decisions about riots in the street and trying to figure out policy. I don't think that the governor is making a decision in regards to policy, especially without consulting you in some way or another and making that decision. I made it.
Kerwin, you asked me a question. I gave you my answer.
Gave me the answer. I just want to debate that answer just a little bit. President Biden made it clear that one of the stipulations for his vice president was the same stipulation that President Obama gave to him, and that was that my vice president is the last person in the room with me when I'm making a decision. That was what he said, and that is what he stuck to.
He also said, never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to things up.
So I believe that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, was that last person in the room. I believe that, yep, she may have dropped the ball on a couple things, but we can say that a lot of people have dropped the ball on a lot of things. But you answered the question. You answered the question. Mr. Berg, very interested to know your thoughts on this issue.
Ask me the question again. Yeah. I want to make sure I have the question right.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is what America needs right now?
So let me start by saying what I think America needs.
I love it.
America needs a Congress that works. And we don't have a Congress that works. And we haven't had one for some time. The most successful person at manipulating, if you want to use that word, the Congress was Joe. And Joe did a very good job with it. He got some big things done.
He did.
That will go down in history. So therefore, your question is, who do I think is better at making Congress work? And I think Kamala is better at making Congress work, or has the potential to, more than Trump does.
Because of her mentorship under President Biden, or because of her innate ability to get things pushed forward?
She was there. She was there as a senator, and she was there as a vice president. And she was there casting really big votes. She broke the tie a few times, as you've seen in some of the commercials. So, I mean, she knows how Congress works. Trump has his particular group of folks, and, it pretty much ends at that. And somebody's got to be able to go in there and put the coalitions together to change the big things that you have to change that you can't do by executive order. That's my answer.
Well, I think right now she is the best that we have in regards to our country and moving forward. I think that
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I think that the fear of anyone else will continue to set us back. I think that the decisions that have been made, I think that a lot of President Trump's presidency moving forward, if elected, is going to be that of spite. I think that some of these crazy conversations he's had with business tycoons here of recent that are going to change the government, I really believe that he's going to take a shot at that in one way or another. And that worries me a very great deal. That worries me a great deal. So from the choices that we have, I believe that that Vice President Harris is exactly what we need, So we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure about tonight's debate. I think that something is going to happen. I'm not sure whether the lights are going to go out, the microphones is going to go out. There's going to be somebody who runs through the stadium and does something crazy, God forbid. But tonight, there's too many people watching. There's viewers, right? I don't know if there's a Pepsi commercial or something that's going to pop off, but I am very, very certain that something's going to happen. I love the discussion that we're having. We're going to take a quick break. Hopefully, we'll have some more results in when we get in and when we come back, and we'll be able to discuss it all with you right here. Please stay tuned. DETV.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware. We are digital platform innovators. And we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Still searching for cheap gas prices? Dump the pump and ride DART. You can DART to your destination for only $4 all day. Let DART do the driving while you enjoy our free Wi-Fi available on all buses statewide. While scrolling through your favorite apps, don't forget to download DART's free transit app for real-time bus information and enjoy the convenience of contactless fare payment through DART Pass. So what are you waiting for? Dump the pump and try transit. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
Government doesn't make a move without an agenda, some type of plan. The problem is we haven't been on the agenda. Sometimes we're overlooked. Sometimes our interests aren't the interest of those in power. I'm your host, Kerwin on DETV's new show, The Agenda. We're going to do our best to ensure that you, Delawareans, are knowledgeable about what's going on in the Assembly. Federal government, local government, it doesn't matter. We're going to do our best to ensure that folks that make the agenda on a daily basis have to answer for it. Let them explain what they're doing. If it affects you, it's on the agenda. Welcome back. Kerwin Gaines here, along with my colleague Patti Nash.
Hello.
And everyone here on our panel and the discussion. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. We know that there's other things going on and in regards to debates that may draw your attention, but we hope that we're streaming. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and everybody on the panel, we can debate on this. My generation, I'm 46 years old, but we're watching two screens at one time, right? I'm watching college football this weekend, and I'm watching professional football, but I love college football, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and I have my tablet in my lap, and I'm doing one of these numbers while the big TV, the big screen is going, and am I the only one?
No.
So, you know what I mean?
Can't miss the moment.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
devices.
two devices going at one time. So we hope that we're on at least one of your devices moving forward throughout this, and please let us know. We're currently occupied at the moment, but please place in the chat comments below how the debate is going.
Yeah, we'd like to know.
We really would like to know. We've heard that there's already memes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it isn't like there's a fly on someone's head, or anything like that. But you guys remember that meme from our past vice president when the fly landed on his head? It was a sticky situation. But we do have some results that are in. Patti, do you want to walk us through these results?
Yes, Democrat primary winner, Matt Meyer for governor. Matt beat out Bethany Hall Long and Colin O'Mara. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. I'm so
Yeah, so Matt Meyer has
devices.
Yeah, that multitasking, right?
So the governor's race is decided, and on the Republican side, It's our understanding that, no surprise, he will face Mike Ramone in the governor's race. So that will be the race in November, Matt Meyer versus Mike Ramone.
Very interesting, very interesting. So that race has been called, and I also believe that the county executive race has been called as well.
Yes, it's our understanding, we'll look for some updated numbers in just a second, that Marcus Henry has been declared the winner of the Newcastle County executive race.
Wow. So we're moving forward when it comes to that. So we have Marcus Henry to be the county executive, part of the race for our Democratic nominee for county executive, and Matt Meyer moving forward as the Democratic nominee for governor. So the results are coming in. Thank you so much for tuning in here to get those election results. We will bring them to you as soon as we get them. To the panel, who's surprised? Who's surprised? How many people
I need
thought
to see
Bethany?
numbers, and then I can tell you whether I'm surprised.
Okay, here we go. Here are some numbers. So for the county executive race, 80%. With 61% of the vote, it's Marcus Henry and Karen Hartley-Nagel with 39% of the vote. And I said I knew that this was going to happen just because of signage. Signage alone, he's killed it. Also, in regards to just getting the name out there and doing all the work that he's done, and not saying that she didn't do any work, but I got news for you. I couldn't turn a corner without seeing something with Marcus Henry.
Kerwin, if I could weigh in on that too.
Please.
I think that, and you see this playing out at the presidential level as well, where Kamala Harris is trying to position herself as the change candidate. If you look at the populace, the voting population is saying they want changes. And Karen has been around a long time. And even her sign said experience matters. And experience matters in an election where the voters want experience. But experience doesn't matter in a change election.
Yeah.
And so Marcus had that going his direction as well. So I think he had organization, I think he had a better team around him, probably had more money, but he also was the change candidate in a change year.
Right, so do you think the county's going to change?
Well, it will definitely change because you've got Matt Meyer stepping out and him stepping in. What that means, I don't know, right? I mean, that's as I said, when the Unified Development Code was passed in 1998, economic growth in the county literally stopped and has had no growth in 20 plus years. And so, you talk about our housing crisis. Well, if you can't build houses, guess what? You're going to have a housing crisis. And you can do things like pass ADUs and additional dwelling units. I mean, there are all sorts of ways to grow the market so that you have a more housing supply. But we haven't done that. So whether they do that or not, I don't know. But I would hope that they would have pro-growth policies, because that's what Newcastle County needs, is pro-growth, not pro-regulation.
I would say this with both of these winners. There's a tremendous opportunity for young people.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is, nobody, this is a change election. And so we've got a whole change of county government. There are 17 or 18 cabinet secretaries, plus division directors. I mean, there are 100 new opportunities at least for good paying jobs within state government that are going to change.
Yeah.
And by the way, I would not worry about the good paying job piece of it. There are important jobs that we want good people, whether they want to have good pay. Certainly they want to be compensated appropriately, but the private sector, probably has better paying jobs.
So let's stay on this topic for just 1 second. In regards to opportunity, do you think Mike Ramone has the horsepower to beat Matt Meyer in the general election?
Oh, sure. Yeah, but he's got to do a couple of things. One I already talked about is that you've got to go to the population centers, aka Wilmington, Middletown, Dover, that are hotbeds of Democrat and independent voters. And like I said, I'd get a couple flatbed trucks and have signs talking about our education results, and I'd have signs talking about the lack of job growth and the housing. And I would get up there and I would say, here is my very aggressive plan to fix those things.
But is your party going to support that financially to make that happen, so he has what is necessary in order to really bring that message to the voters?
I haven't looked at what it costs to rent a flatbed truck recently, but I suspect it's not all that much. Because you've got to do ads and things like that. I get it. But as we've already said, you got to get out and knock on doors. You got to meet people, and that's what I was saying. On Sundays, because you've got those large congregations in the city of Wilmington, and I wouldn't park outside of them, but 2 blocks down, so that when folks come and go, they can be like, hey, what's that down there, and go and hear directly from him, or proxies. And I would be doing that in Wilmington and Middletown and Dover, and I'd be going out into the suburbs, and again I would be very aggressive on social media and things like that. Yeah. But with as Pete DuPont would have called it, bold primary colors. You can't be mealy-mouthed and wishy-washy. You got to say, look, I am going to fix education, and this is how. I'm going to fix the housing crisis, and this is how. And I would be very, very aggressive in those plans.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not. The best part that I would say about Mr. Ramon is that he doesn't come across as a Republican, per se, right? He has that demeanor where he can go either way. I'm not saying that he's wishy-washy or waffling on any issues, but he can speak to the congregation that is in Wilmington and not be odd.
But it has to be damn right issues. When you finish talking, somebody has to say, damn right. Right. If they say, well, that was very interesting, and I'm glad he was here, but he seems like a nice guy, that's not going to convert somebody from a Democrat Matt Meyer voter to a Mike Ramone voter. They have to have listened to him and said, yeah, I've heard Matt Meyer and I saw him as county executive, but what Mike said, yeah, damn right, we need that.
Right.
And that's difficult to do.
Ms. Tompkins, do you think he can pull it off, or do you see?
I think again.
I forgot you can't answer.
No. I'm just going to say overall, I just think that this is an election of issues, right? And so, who's going to be able to tackle the issue? Who's going to be able to give out the plan, right? And then once they get elected, who's able to actually carry out the plan, right? And the people holding that candidate responsible. And I think when we get back to tying it into how this is a young and vibrant change environment, that is part of it, right? What have you done to change what is right in front of my eyes, right? And what is your plan to do to change what's right in front of my eyes? So I think that, both candidates have to be very clear about the issues and what's their plan moving forward.
Yeah.
Let me answer, if I might, because I have a different answer for you. If I were Mike Ramone, I would be on the train in the morning, going to Washington, knocking on doors, saying, we just had a Democratic primary in Delaware, and it was very, very divisive. And no matter who won, I would have made this same speech, okay? I think it's going to be difficult to put the Democratic Party back together because of the negativity of the race, and I think the Republicans might be able to take advantage of that, and I would be in Washington knocking on the Republican governor's door and the big fundraisers down there and saying, the Republicans have not controlled this governor's seat since 1992. And we've got a shot to do it, and I need $5 to $10 million.
I mean, he already had an article, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. On just that, once Biden was off the ticket. So, I mean, I think
but
he's
he needs $5 to $10
that.
million.
Sure, but I don't disagree that he needs to raise that money, and D.C. is the place to do it because $6 trillion flows through there, and everybody has a straw.
So what do you think the day one should be for whomever is governor, right? Or let's not be corny. Let's say week one, month one. What do you think their top priorities should be? Whether it's Mike Ramone or whether it's Matt Meyer, what do you suspect that they should? To me, I'm going to go right back, and I think that they're not going to get as big of an impact as with anything other than education. I don't think that housing. I know that we're dealing with housing inequity, what have you, but I don't think we're going to see anything until interest rates drop. Once interest rates drops, people, banks, financial institutions, ideas, developers, things move. When interest rates high, things slow down, and we're seeing that now. And I think Delaware is dealing with that. I think that we'll have a little bit more wiggle room when that occurs. But Ms. Tompkins, what do you think the day one should be?
Well, I mean, I disagree about the housing, right?
Okay.
I mean, I think that it needs to be a clear plan as to how to tackle this issue, right? When we see, even in the city of Wilmington, the amount of homelessness that is existing, and homelessness does not exist because of economics. It exists because of a lack of housing and a lack of fair and affordable housing, right? And so there is clearly an issue that is here. And so, again, there needs to be some type of explicit plan, because I'm telling you, this is what people, again, are feeling, right? Now, the education part of it certainly needs to be, certainly something that needs to come to fruition. A plan needs to be there, and certainly that's how everyone is, feeling, especially after those articles that came out about Delaware and education, right? I get it. But when you see, obviously, folks on the street, I mean, housing is a huge part of it. And not only that, let me just say this, housing also impacts so many more when we think about the levels of, right, with people. It's affecting young professionals, it's affecting the elderly, it's affecting, right, say small families, right? It's affecting everyone. And so when I think about it, housing should be at the forefront, just right there next to education, in my opinion.
All right. So I too have to disagree. I do believe that housing plays a great deal with economics. I can go to a Walmart parking lot where people are spending the night and they're sleeping in their cars, which is common, unfortunately, now. And it's not because they're making a political statement, and it's not even because they have mental disabilities like some of our homeless does. It's because they can't afford a place to live. So I think that comes right down to
That's because it's a lack of affordable housing, though.
Right, but that's economics. I believe that comes down to the overall interest side of things and how we can afford to get things done. Price gouging on that, I think it's economics.
Okay.
It's the numbers. I know a numbers guy, and he will tell me all in all that it's all about the numbers.
There you go, Charlie. Give us the percentages.
If you want more of something, you lower the price. If you want less of something, you raise the price. We have raised the price of housing.
There you go.
We've raised the price of housing in many, many ways, and we could spend 3 or 4 hours on that alone from an economics perspective. So if you want more housing, what you should do is allow developers and builders and property owners to build more housing, and then the more you have, the lower the price goes down. But right now you've got a situation where you've got limited supply and high demand. What happens? It's called supply and demand, and that is a law that nobody has rescinded. And all we've done is frankly made housing more expensive by throwing more and more regulations at it and more laws and the like. And so get out of the way. Let property owners develop their properties. Get DelDOT out of the way. Get DENREC out of the way, get city regulations out of the way, and let people subdivide and add to the housing supply. And the price, shockingly, will go down.
So I agree with you, but it seems as though we have some results here. The Democratic primary winner, Lieutenant Governor, is Kyle Evans Gay. Congratulations, Ms. Gay, for your nomination. And I'm a little surprised, I want to be honest, a little bit, even though she spent a lot of money, some great placement in regards to signage and whatever all throughout the state. My current position has me driving up and down the state weekly, and you know what, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing her I saw her footprint there, and it was effective. We'll see.
It seemed to me that she greatly, I don't know the figures, but it looked like she greatly outspent Sherry Dorsey Walker. She had a lot of TV commercials. She had billboards on 95.
Yeah.
She had some big ticket items in her campaign that that I don't think the other candidates had.
But will she
not
have?
That that's the, I'm not saying that's the only reason she won or whatever, but that was an observation I made.
The one thing that I will say, and I didn't know all of the candidates as well as I knew Sherry, but Sherry is a roll your sleeves up in the community, get things done, and it didn't matter if it was clean or dirty or easy or whatever. She was there, and she will continue to be there, I'm sure. My question is, I don't have that same knowledge about Ms. Gay.
Again, I'll come back to it's a change election. And Kyle Evans Gay is newer. Sherry's been around a long time, and by the way, an awesome candidate. And you know, as somebody from the other side of the aisle, and therefore not supporting either one, from a Democrat perspective, she would have been a very, very strong candidate and elected official in that role. But it's a change election, and Kyle Evans-Gay, pictures of the family and the young kids and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just that's the year.
She's been around a while, and she's known as a workhorse in the state senate. She's done some stuff. And she was a good candidate. She ran a good campaign.
Yeah,
she's been there what, 8 years, two terms. Yeah, but you know, we're sharing.
How long's Kathy been gone? That's how long she's been.
Yeah. I think it's been, right. Yeah, no. But so, you know, Sherry's been around longer than that, and I just think that that it's a change year, and so people were looking for newer people, right or wrong.
Well, the decision's been made. The decision has definitely been made. Jen, you have anything to weigh in regards to this?
No, I just think, you know, both of them are very strong candidates. Both, you know, are great partners of the Urban League. And certainly we have worked with both Senator Gay and certainly with Representative Walker on many things throughout, you know, the state and also legislation. And so congratulations to Senator Gay. And we're, you know, looking forward to, you know, working with her as she progresses on in the election.
And look forward to seeing her here on DETV and discussing those things as well. And I'm very interested to know her platform. Like I said, I just don't have that same knowledge in regards to roll up the sleeves, get things done in the community as I did with the other candidates. Patti, your thoughts?
Well, I have to, full disclosure, I am friends with Sherry, and before I worked in television, I was in public relations, and I actually was campaign manager for her first race for the state senate. So full disclosure, I cannot be, you know, an unbiased opinion on this.
Well, it's Delaware. One of us would have worked for her.
Well,
I mean, there's 4 people here.
Who has an unbiased opinion?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, both candidates. I mean, certainly Kyle Evans-Gay, you know, is a progressive candidate, and you know, I'm sure that I agree with her on most of the issues. So, you know, I'm not unhappy. I'm just a little sad for my friend.
Yeah, I mean, loss is tough. It's one of the main reasons why I don't run, so I don't lose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just want to take the fun out of it right there. But you know, I have a strong feeling that we won't see, this won't be the end of Ms. Walker. We will continue to see her in one capacity or the other getting things done, and I have a feeling that she'll be back on the horse running for something here fairly soon. So you know, I'm optimistic in regards to that. I hope that the mayor's race doesn't cause any divisiveness in the city. I mean, we're getting the numbers here. And you know who I'm depending on bringing, because a lot of piece to that, believe it or not, is Marcus Henry. I think that the county executive, beyond running the county, which isn't an easy task by any means, but I think Matt Meyer has some people to win. I think that Governor Carney has some people to win. And I think the bridge, one of the bridges in regards to that, is going to have to be Marcus Henry in regards to that's just my opinion.
I mean, I you know, to jump back on my horse of the change election, right? Because I'm just going to ride this horse all night long. You know, Matt, I think, got the opportunity to win that primary. Again, Bethany was kind of flying upside down, but the change election again, right? He was the county executive, but he was not in the executive branch in Dover.
Right.
And a lot of the folks around the Carney administration have been there since Tom Carper.
Right.
And so there's going to be a lot of change in those positions.
Oh,
those
absolutely.
Highly paid positions. That's my good friend pointed out.
Yeah.
Sadly, as a fiscal conservative, I don't like the fact that they're highly paid positions, but we want good people, so that's all good. But so there's going to be a change there, and I think you're going to see, obviously, Marcus Henry at Newcastle County is a change. And so the one race that there was no opportunity as a change was the city of Wilmington, because Velda's been around a long time, and John Carney's been in every elected office, with the exception of U.S. Senator, that you've got for the most part. I mean, obviously he was in the legislature and that kind of thing, but he's been around since '92.
Well, he's just put one more in his pocket,
Right.
just about. Yeah.
And by the way, he's a great guy. I don't, again, policy-wise, he and I don't agree on everything, but he's a solid guy. But the city of Wilmington did not have a change election, but the county did and the state did, and I think that Kyle Evans-Gay's victory, I think that Sarah McBride's victory, those are all leading towards that. The only one that has not had change is the city of Wilmington. And so it'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and first I was worried, and the more I think about the conversation, maybe, with all the negative ads, maybe Matt left a bad taste in people's mouth, you know what I mean, in regards to this. But when you garner that much of the vote, I don't think you did.
We haven't seen numbers.
Oh, I forgot. I apologize. Right, we don't know for sure.
We don't know the turnout.
We don't know the turnout. But from the look of that,
when there was 65%, he was up 2-1.
No, I didn't see that.
I thought that's what the numbers were.
No.
Can we have those numbers brought back up for everyone here in the audience?
You haven't shown governor's numbers yet.
Yeah. The gubernatorial numbers. And so many people are on board, and maybe he doesn't have that much to win as far as public opinion. Maybe it's already there, and I think the race between him and Mr. Ramon is going to be interesting. Will the mudslinging continue? Will it be something new? Will Mr. Ramon get that money from D.C. and put that into press? I don't know, but here's the numbers again for the governor's race with 73% in. Bethany Hall Long only garnered 36% of the vote, whereas Matt Myers at 47% and Colin O'Mara 16%. Question, so I'll be honest with you about another thing. I did not have a very strong knowledge about Colin until this election, okay? I'll say that. I'll put that base out there. Second thing was, sat down, had a conversation with him, spent a couple hours with him, and wow, I think this guy's sharp.
Oh, he's very sharp.
I think this guy is really, really sharp. And I'm very curious to see what his next move is. I'm almost excited to see what his next move is. I think that he is a player here in Delaware politics and can do some big things. I think that he identifies with the younger voter that we may not have taken into a very strong account. I mean, you think about, we've been up here for 3 or 4 hours now, and we haven't even talked about that young vote, right? I think that young vote could go to Colin. How do we effectively use him? Very interested to know, Mr. Bird, your ideas in regards to him and his next moves.
I'm the wrong person to ask.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
And I'll tell you why. I grew up in Ellesmere.
Okay.
And I have always been worried about income and status and things like that. If I had a $400,000 a year job, I wouldn't be running for governor of Delaware.
Well,
is that fair, Charlie?
I think that's very fair, especially when the other 2 lanes were already full.
Yeah.
Well,
where's the 3rd lane?
I mean, Markell wasn't poor when he ran for the office.
But there are 2 lanes.
Yeah.
Markell was in one, and John Carney was in the other.
Yeah. Right.
There were already people in 2 lanes, right?
I think that lane.
I was very, very advantaged in that I got elected when I was 25, but more importantly, I got beat when I was 29 and got it out of my system.
But I definitely.
Colin hasn't gotten it out of his system.
Yeah, I don't think he has either.
My question is so you have Chris Coons in the Senate.
For how long?
Well, incumbents win, so he's got a lifetime sinecure until he decides to leave.
But could you see Chris accepting or going after a possible cabinet post?
Well, obviously I could, but
it's not far-fetched.
Sure, it's not. First of all, somebody has to win presidency.
Right.
So
there's that part.
If so, sure, right. But one might have thought that one might have thought that Joe Biden would have put him in something, and did not. So Kamala Harris is going to have other people to, frankly, pay off. So anyway, My point is...
And then Matt Meyer will have a very juicy appointment.
Exactly. And so he might choose Colin O'Mara, but he could choose somebody that might be more helpful to him. So, and obviously, the Senate will be decided in November, and that will be a lifetime sinecure. The House will be decided, and assuming that nobody moves out of the Senate, that will be a lifetime sinecure.
Right.
So, and the governor is in for at least 4, but perhaps 8 years, since if we go by the last, 40 years, going back to 1980?
So again, the Delaware way.
So where does he go?
Right.
By the time you get to 2032 for a gubernatorial race.
Does anyone ever retire around here? I don't know.
When their blood reaches when their blood temperature reaches room temperature.
Right, that's where they go. I mean, we love to hold office here for a while in the state of Delaware. I haven't seen anything like it, but I can honestly say that I was impressed with Colin O'Mara.
Absolutely.
He was
no question about
doubt.
Impressed. Impressed with his debating skills. It's beyond common sense. It's just a way of seeing things that, like, let's make this work. You know what I mean? And this is how we can make it work. And then he backs up with, well, this is where it's worked at other places, so there's no reason why we can't make this work. And these are the big issues. I'm like, Dad, go on it. Man.
I would say this to the new governor, either Matt or Mike, and certainly to Marcus. This state has been served best, in my opinion, when we have brought in people from other places into the higher levels of government. And we haven't done that for a while.
It's true.
And we really need to do that. Pete DuPont did that. Mike Castle did that.
Well,
Jack Markell did that.
With Colin O'Mara, right?
With Colin O'Mara. And a few others.
He brought him in from, I believe it was San Jose.
Yeah.
And he's done a wonderful job for the state of Delaware. We're still benefiting from programs that he helped legislate, several years ago. And the World Wildlife Federation, that's nothing to squawk at,
That's right.
That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And
as a person who's not a native Delawarean and has come to the state,
you don't have a say.
To make a change. Thank you so much for that statement. Thank you.
I mean that. I absolutely mean that.
Thank you.
I was very involved with a governor who chose not to do that, and she and I fought about it all the time.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, but it's a different way of thinking because we've been dealing with these same problems over and over and over again, and they're not changing. We've made it very clear. Our numbers guy has made it very clear that these problems are not changing. So we have to think outside of the box. I had the privilege of working with the state of California this year, and it was. I went in during my contract, and I was thinking the worst. I really was. I was like, ugh, I don't even want to be here. It's California, this and that, and this and that. But working with their Department of Elections, and they did just that, where they bring in some Silicon Valley folks, and they work there for 2 years, and they put away their big salaries, which they can afford to do, right?
Sure.
And they come in and they bring in these fresh new thoughts in IT and governance and all these different things into the government, and it works, and people are open to it. And believe it or not, the government in the sections that I was in ran like a corporation, right? There wasn't a lot of this nepotism and all this other stuff that we find in governments. It was straight business. And they were highly effective in getting things done. Believe it or not, California was highly effective. But I think that's exactly what Delaware needs. I don't know. Your thoughts?
We need some new thinking around here.
New thinking?
Absolutely need some new thinking. And again, talking about the younger folks, right? I mean, if you look at the first Carney budget to the last Carney budget, expenditures in the Information Systems Department, DTI, the growth rate there was 10-15% over that period of time. Meanwhile, education increased 60% and the things like that, right? I mean, we are not spending money on the new economy, right? Making government more efficient by applying the appropriate use of technology to our government, like you're talking about in California.
Yeah.
You look at when Bob and I were trying to look at the results before coming on here, the website kept crashing.
Right.
And you're looking and they go, well, that's because you haven't upgraded your servers And this isn't rocket scientists anymore. We've got people in the city that are learning how to write code, and we've got
how much of that
needs.
is funneling back to Dover and getting that done?
And so they're bringing in that new blood that might have that recognize that I'm watching TV, I've got an iPad and a phone,
Right.
and I got three things going on here in short attention span theater.
Right.
But I'm watching all these games, I'm looking at the results, and meanwhile our government is still running around with pieces of paper.
Yeah, and we have to make those changes. I hope that we find another place for Colin, and I hope that he runs another successful campaign and we can utilize his skills in one way or another. I think he ran a great campaign. Well done, Colin O'Mara. Thank you for your effort there. We're going to take a quick break. We're excited that you're staying here with us. We're getting the ratings. We're seeing that you all are watching, so we must be doing something right. So we'll continue to do that and stick close, and we'll be right back.
I'm asking for 45 more years.
I'm asking for my baby girl.
I'm asking to see it up and running again.
I'm asking for all of us.
1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. Ask about a prostate screening that can detect cancer when it's most treatable, so you can ask for so much more. Visit healthydelaware.org/prostate or call 211 to learn more.
A new beginning, a second chance. Call it what you want, but this is what never giving up looks like. This is what finding someone who believes in you looks like. I thought Goodwill was just a store until a friend told me about Train to Gain through Goodwill's Job Resource Center. After 5 years away, I had a lot of self-doubt and fear about my future, but Goodwill had my back. And today, I love where I work. They matched me with an employer who believes in second chances, and now I have a new start thanks to Goodwill.
To learn more about Goodwill's career development opportunities, call today.
You know the why for state-of-the-art fitness centers and amazing pools.
But we're so much more.
The why is where Delawareans improve their health.
Where our communities get stronger.
Where everyone belongs.
It's where we battle chronic disease.
Where cancer survivors restore their mind and body.
And weight loss goals become lifelong habits.
We are the why.
Good for you and good for the community.
Welcome back, everyone. We took a little break. We didn't forget about you. I hope you didn't forget about us. We're very excited about this is the first time DETV has ever done anything like this, right? Delaware isn't known for live, up-to-date political coverage in primary and general elections. I don't know. I've missed it if they are, but we're bringing it here to you. And I'm here with my co-host, Pati Nash, and from DETV News. Thank you so much for all your work and helping to put this together. And I have a great panel, but I also have a winner right here on DETV, and that is Miss Letitia Tish Bracey. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us here on DETV. You have pretty much garnered the election for council, and we are excited. And how do you feel?
It's been a long day.
I can only imagine.
But I am grateful and thankful to all of the residents of the city of Wilmington that supported this campaign. It's been a very long campaign season, but we had a goal and we were able to reach our goal.
What do you contribute your success to?
I think being very focused on community, having a strong team of supporters to help develop what our campaign strategy looked like, was important to us, but also making sure that what I believe in my values came across. And, in a political atmosphere where there's a lot of division, I didn't want that. And so I wanted to be able to reach everyone, whether you're on one side, whether you're voting for Velda, whether you're voting for John, whether you're voting for Bethany, whether you were voting for Matt. I wanted you to know that in local politics here in Wilmington, you had a voice and a council representative that would listen to everyone's point of view. And I think that really resonated with the voters.
Yeah, Tish, how do you think it's going to fall out with the mayoral election? What are you expecting blowback, or are you expecting a difficulty? You are what I'd like to call a bridge right? I don't know many people that are against you. So I mean, you're going to have to bridge some gaps.
Yeah.
You are. I can't color it any other way. But am I far-fetched? Do you see it the same way?
I think it's going to be tough. Velda Jones-Potter ran a tremendous race, and she galvanized a base of voters in the city of Wilmington that have felt left out of the political conversation, that have felt underserved and undervalued. And I think that it's going to be extremely important that Governor Carney, as our new mayor, reaches out to her supporters to bridge that gap, working with City Council to make sure that the lessons learned about listening to every part of our city carries through. He made that campaign promise as he was on the trail, and he ran a great race as well. But I think tomorrow, we're all Democrats. And so at the end of the day, we're all Wilmingtonians. We all have to come back together and unify. And I think it's going to be very important that we do that.
Yeah, there's no choice in doing that.
Exactly.
Right? We talked about on the show earlier today about the need for Marcus Henry to even step in and help really work with some of these relationships and build them. And it's going to take all of us, right, in order to make this happen. Wilmington is I believe, is making a turn. Is making a very positive turn. I'm excited about it. I even said that, hey, when all the kids are gone, please, Lord, sooner than later. And I have to downsize. Like, I'm thinking about, why not Wilmington, right? There's enough to do here. It puts me in a central part. It looks like a good time. All the restaurants, it's great. But I think that it just needs to continue.
It does.
It needs to continue, and we need to knock down any obstacle that's going to prevent it from doing that.
Exactly. And we have to be intentional about listening to everyone's concerns in the city and really coming together and mobilizing so that we can make the change that we all know is possible here.
Right. Yeah, and I think you're the right person to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'm excited that you won. I'm excited that you are going to do a great job, because we know that you are, and you're going to kill it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on tonight.
So we have Matt, one of our correspondents, is with Governor Carney currently. Well, our May Gov? Not yet? Okay, well, we'll wait until that connection gets up. But how are we going to address him? Is that Gov May? Gov May Carney?
Elect.
Governor, he's not elected.
He's not elected yet. He's not elected yet, right. So it will be official. But we do have some bridges that need to be rebuilt. And I think that happens with every election, right? You got winners and you have losers. And, it's just a little bit different here in the state of Delaware, because the constituents, everybody knows the winner and everybody knows the loser, right? So you're going to pass them at some function. And all those things that were said and all those things, it's going to come back, and you have to be able to deal with it. Right. We have to. So Letitia, I'm going to give you this question, because I've given it to everybody else on the panel about the Delaware way. You've worked with every senatorial candidate, and I mean, your pedigree in regards to politics here is pretty impressive. But what do you think of the Delaware way?
So I think in theory and in practice, historically the Delaware way has been something that's really unique to us, in the fact that we've been able to come together and kind of move things forward in the state. But I also think sometimes that the Delaware way can be our hindrance, because we're so used to things being done a certain way that sometimes when change comes, we're hesitant or resistant to it. So I think a healthy balance of, looking at how things have been done, who does what, but then also looking to the future and looking at what Delaware should become in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years, and how do we move past the old mindset and kind of move into, okay, this worked for us, but how do we enhance what has been what we call the Delaware way? And maybe there's a Delaware way 2.0 that brings more people into the tent, and that brings more people in, that is more inclusive and more equitable in how we're maneuvering and functioning.
So do you see it breaking, or do you see it continuing?
I think I think if you look at the current state of politics in Delaware, you see little cracks in it because there are a lot of people that are stepping up to run for office now that in times past would never, you would never give a second thought to. And they're doing quite well on the ballots. And so I don't think it's ever going to go away, but I do think that there's an opportunity for us to evolve. And I think that's starting to happen. I think you're starting to see more people vocalize, this worked for a while, but we need to look at how this works. Or, yes, we've been doing all of these things over here, but you forgot about us over here. And so how do we start to bridge those gaps? And I think that conversation has been rising to the top, and you hear it a lot more, and you have leaders like Jen in the Urban League that are really like driving those conversations around equity and how we really bring everyone in. And so the more we're doing that, you'll start to see the Delaware way continue to evolve. And I think that's what makes us unique and special, is that we have this way about us, but I think it needs to continue to evolve. And if we stay stuck, then we're never going to see the progress that we really want around here.
Yeah, I can agree.
Yeah.
I can agree. Folks on this end, what are your thoughts on that?
There's nothing wrong with the Delaware way. I agree with you. What needs to change is the personalities within the Delaware way. And if you start to change those personalities, the system, the model really works well, but you need new people in it. And you always need new people.
Exactly.
Depending on whatever the issue is.
And that's not a function of the people that are in there now, it's a function of that it needs turnover.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And the people that are in there now need to step away.
Yeah, maybe. I'm very curious to know. I've heard through social media. I've been unable to watch the debate because of obvious reasons, but I've heard that it's not going well for President Trump. I heard that he is not as strong as he once was. Have you heard anything, Ms. Bracey?
I haven't heard much, but I'm excited to tune in and see what's going on. I have a feeling that the prosecutor brought her A game tonight.
And I can say that I'm not as old as Trump, but I can understand not being as good as you were when you were young.
What were your, so yeah, while we have that, we were having that discussion, and I already know how one of the comments are going to go, so I think, but what was your feeling? I was enjoying a cigar, having a nice Sunday afternoon, and I find out that my president isn't going to run anymore. I was one of the shocked ones. I can't speak for everybody here, but I was really shocked. I didn't think that we were going to allow for media to, and I guess rhetoric and all these other things to push out the president. But the more I think about it, the more comfortable I'm becoming with it. But my first impression was, daggone it. I don't know. Was that yours, Mr. Burke?
No.
No?
No. Now, I'm old. I understand I'm not at 75 what I was at 65.
You were 35 years old.
So, that's...
Bob, you were 35 years old if you were a day.
No,
How about you?
That's a very stressful job. Look at everybody.
Oh, yeah. You don't look the same when you come in as the day that you come out.
So.
Charlie, go ahead. I'm going to give you.
You and I had that conversation in the studio where I told you that he was aged, not everybody who's old is aged, and he is, and that is or should be a demanding job.
Yeah.
And who's taking the call at 2 a.m. when you were keeping him only functioning between 10 and 4? And so, no, that didn't surprise me in the least. It surprised me that it took so long, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. That would I agree with, and I had a conversation with other politicians, is that, and for all of you that have run a campaign and been in campaigns, you understand that the country, whether your area, your grid is built up on grids, you have to win those sectors, and it takes time to win those sectors. It takes time to win the South. It takes time to win Arizona, if you can even win Arizona, right? It takes time to win those states. And when your time is cut back, from people. You can't go off the ideas of the person that was running before you just because you shared an office with them. That state needs to love you, you know? And does she have enough time to win those corners of the country that's necessary in order to win the election? The overall electoral college. That's the part that I'm worried about.
If you look at polling up to this moment, and whenever anybody says a national poll, I don't care. It means absolutely nothing. There are 7 states that mean anything, and Delaware is not one of them. So it doesn't really matter what we do here either. So the question is, those 7 battleground states, and even within those states, it's going to be 4 or 5 counties that will really matter. And each one has $1 billion or more to spend in those various places, and they're going to drop every nickel of that into those places. And somebody's going to win by 42,000 votes, just like in 2020.
Okay. Let me answer, Charlie. In 1916, that's when Trump, or 2016, when Trump won, right? The Republican Party brought Rance Priebus in and for a fundraiser, and Rance was the national Republican chairman at the time, and
I was the state chairman at the time.
Yeah, and the nominee had not been determined. And Rance got the question at the fundraiser, who are you with? Which of the Republican candidates are you with? And Rance said, it's not my responsibility to pick the candidate. It's my responsibility to make sure that the mechanism is there to make sure whoever the candidate is can win, okay? I feel very good about this election because the Democrats have done that. They've spent money, we've got field offices everywhere, and we're very prepared for this election.
Very true. I think it's very true.
And I think we're in good shape this year.
And I'm nationally.
Well, in the battleground states that matter.
Yeah.
In particular.
Well, unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to Ms. Tish Bracey. She has so many victory parties to attend, I'm sure, none of which I was invited to, but we won't even go there. But thank you so much for joining us here on the panel on short notice. Thank you very much for all your service. Congratulations more than anything.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well done. Well done. And I'm sure there'll be more press coming from your campaign as well. So thank you very much. I believe we're going to take another short break. And we'll be right back right here on DETV.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware. We are digital platform innovators. And we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Still searching for cheap gas prices? Dump the pump and ride DART. You can DART to your destination for only $4 all day. Let DART do the driving while you enjoy our free Wi-Fi available on all buses statewide. While scrolling through your favorite apps, don't forget to download DART's free transit app for real-time bus information and enjoy the convenience of contactless fare payment through DART Pass. So what are you waiting for? Dump the pump and try transit. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
Government doesn't make a move without an agenda, some type of plan. The problem is we haven't been on the agenda. Sometimes we're overlooked. Sometimes our interests aren't the interest of those in power. I'm your host, Kerwin on DETV's new show, The Agenda. We're going to do our best to ensure that you, Delawareans, are knowledgeable about what's going on in the Assembly. Federal government, local government, it doesn't matter. We're going to do our best to ensure that folks that make the agenda on a daily basis have to answer for it. Let them explain what they're doing. If it affects you, it's on the agenda.
Welcome back. We're getting some late results in. Some of the races have already been decided, and we're still waiting to hear on a couple of the final races that are still outstanding. Want to thank both of our panels tonight.
Oh man, what a great
Kerwin
panel!
for leading such a great conversation.
Great
with them.
panelists. It made it easy. I mean, I love the discussion they have. I love the banter with myself and Charlie Copeland. Believe it or not, we do like each other a great deal. But
It's
you probably you couldn't tell from that. But having great panelists, congratulations again to Letitia Bracey, Colin O'Mara that was here that wasn't able to be on screen but was definitely here supporting ourselves, the organization, and everything that we do here. Very excited about that. And thank you, Patti, for putting all this together and organizing and doing the great work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
What we're going to work on doing is getting some conversations with folks that are out there in the field. And Matt is currently out in the field with Governor Carney.
That's right. Matt Ford.
Matt Ford from DETV News is right there. So we have a remote interview right now. Can we go to Matt? Is he available? Matt, are you out there? Stand by. We're going to try to stand by for the mayor. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. No problem. We're working through it.
We also have, we had some folks out at a couple of different places tonight, and we'll be bringing you some comments from other candidates as soon as we are able to.
Right. But Patti, what was your big takeaway from this evening?
You know, I don't know. I mean, Charlie kept talking about a year of change, but to me, it doesn't really feel that way because to me, some of the same names are staying. They've almost like traded seats or things like that. You know, you have, and she wasn't primaried, but Lisa Blunt Rochester's going to go into the Senate, and somebody from the state is going to move into Congress, and John Carney is staying. You know, another longtime member, politician, and I'm being told that we do have Matt.
No, we're going to review all the races and the winners of some of these races. So let's see if we can bring up some of that information if possible so we can review. Just to go over again for some of those that may just be tuning in now that does not know all the election results. Currently, how much of the vote was in the last time we were here? This is with 65% of the vote. John Carney has pretty much won the mayoral race for Wilmington, and Velda Potter is behind him with 45% of the vote. How much of that do you think is affected, Patti, with early voting, would you say?
Well, it's hard to say without the numbers. I'd like to see the percentages of registered voters that voted. I mean, I was shocked, frankly, to find out that only 16% of the registered voters in the state voted in the last primary.
Yeah.
And that's the registered voters. That's not even the population.
Mm-hmm.
So what percentage of the population is registered, and then what percentage of them are actually voting? I mean, folks, you have so much power. Every vote counts. It really does. And there's our city council at large.
Our city council at large, yeah. Letitia Bracey with 29%, Maria Cabrera with 24%, and Alex Hackett comes in with 19%. So those are going to be your three at-large candidates that are there. So there's going to be Hackett, Bracey, and Cabrera. Danielle Covington with 14% of the vote, and Wayne Dobson with 12% of the vote. Right now, only 22.17% of registered voters voted.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And that's up a little bit from last primary, but 22% of the registered voters, again, that's not the population, that's the population that are registered.
And we saw up there, which you may have seen, is the county executive, and that was Mr. Marcus Henry has won that election.
Yes.
And we're very anxious to see, and we talked about it here with the panel, of him being a bridge maker here in Newcastle County between Dover and Wilmington, and throughout the county, right? So he has a lot of work to do. A very good person was elected to that position, so we're expecting very good works coming through as well. So I think that no one was surprised. I was a little surprised about the governor's race. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised. I thought that Bethany, although there was a lot of bad press, did a little bit better. She would have done better than what she did.
I have to agree with you, Kerwin, because she had the backing of the Democratic Party behind her.
She had the unions behind her?
She had the unions, she had all the endorsements that she needed. But
only 22% come out to vote.
That's right.
It's really hard to make sure that you have everything, right? And it's only 22%. And what would that have been later on? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's a little shocking. It's a little shocking to me.
Well, especially because, as we talked about earlier, that because Delaware is such a blue state, really, I don't know. This year it seems like there is going to be a race between the Democrat and the Republican with Mike Ramone at the GOP, on the GOP ticket. But
and it may be a lot closer than what we've seen in the past in regards to Republican gubernatorial candidates. Some believe that Mike Ramone has a real shot.
I know, and that would be the first in a long time.
Can't count him out. We can't count him out. I don't think you can count anybody out at this time. I think it's going to be very interesting. Hopefully there won't be a lot of mudslinging and negative ads. We can just stick directly to the issues at hand, right, and deal with that. I think
that's such a sweet thought.
I'm doing the best I can here, Patty. I'm doing the best I can. My fingers are crossed.
Let's hope everyone is nice to each other.
You know what I mean? And we deal with the issues, and we sing a little song afterwards, and we move forward and shake hands. And you think we got a shot at that?
No.
No? Okay.
I don't know. I mean, the Delaware way, I'm originally from New York, born and raised.
That's a different way.
It is a much different way. There is no parade the day after Election Day, or after Election Day to celebrate with your opponents.
Yeah.
In New York. There is a difference in Delaware. There is something. I mean, I know sometimes people talk about the Delaware way as some kind of like shadow government, that runs everything.
I see. I'm completely different. I'm not a proponent for the Delaware way. I see the Delaware way as being lazy and old and very harumph, so to speak. I don't see it as
that's the way we've
always done it. That's the way
Yeah.
we're going to continue to do it. And
Yeah.
I worked at DuPont for 45 years, and that's the way we're going to get it done. And that's
right.
And that's the way that I see it. And I just don't. I don't think that it can continue here. And that's just me. I don't think it can continue. I don't know.
Well,
I think that these elections are showing that.
Well, I mean, and unfortunately, and my apologies to Dr. Mike Katz, the head of the Independent Party, because he did sit down with me. I lost the interview, was not able to be shown tonight, but he was talking about how younger people are signing up more and more for the Independent Party. They are not loyal to parties. They do not, declare themselves to be a Republican or a Democrat. And fully 51%, he said, of the national population considers themselves to be independent. So I don't know if that's going to affect, what we're talking about, but, I think that the old ways are losing steam, is my point.
Losing steam. But how great were we here at DETV? This is the first time that we've ever done anything like this. I'm sure that it was done before, before we've done it in the past, but nothing like this where we're bringing up live how are things going in the elections. We're showing you, letting you talk to top political officials in the area, letting you know how things are going, and great job to our team here for making it happen. Very, very good. Very, very good.
Take a look at the credits at the end of the show. We have a great team here. People pitched in and took on different roles and are great to work with.
Yep, very good. Okay, so we have some more for the 15th district with 98% of the vote in.
Oh, wow. That's
Valerie Longhurst has been beaten by Kamala T. Smith with 53% of the vote. That's 46 to 53. That is very big. I don't think we saw that one coming.
No. Although Bob did mention that some incumbents might be in trouble. I don't know whether or not that was one of them that he was thinking of. I'm just going to pull this up. I think that, I don't know how long she's been in that seat, but a long time.
Yeah, definitely a long time. Patti, in closing, we're going to close up here. What are your final thoughts on this evening?
I think that my final thought is that it's a little disappointing at the voter turnout. I think that people need to appreciate the privilege of voting and the responsibility of voting. And it makes me a little sad that less people, I'm kind of a political nerd, so I mean, you know, and the news junkie. So I tune into this stuff. I'm a super voter. I vote for everything. But it makes me a little disappointed when I see that so few people come out.
Yeah. For me, I'm always excited about the political process. I think that we have a great opportunity in the state of Delaware because of our size, that we are able to have relationships with those that are running and know them with such high-powered offices such as county executive and governor and all of our state senators and representatives. And we have to take advantage of that at all times. And we do that through voting. And unfortunately, when 22% of the people come out and vote, it's very hard to show a true representation of what people think of those candidates, right? Although a win is a win, and we have to appreciate it, and we thank all of those who did vote, that did go out and take advantage of it, but they did not do it to our liking, right? Patti and I would love to see those numbers a lot higher.
And you don't hear this much on media, but I'd also like to thank the candidates. I mean, I think that, you know, there are people who go into public service because they do want to do good, and they do want to affect change, good change, and they do have, you know, motives that are good. And I'd like to thank those people tonight for running for office. And I'm sorry to those who worked hard and lost. And thank you for participating in the process.
And we'd like to thank you, all of our viewers that were online and actually watching, and all those who came by the studio, all those who participated in this process and behind the camera. Thank you so much for your support in this and making this a first for DETV. We will continue to bring all the new local news and national news to you whenever it occurs, when we'll get it out to you, as I always say, to ensure that you are on the agenda. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and we look forward to seeing you real soon, right back here on DETV. Good night, everyone.
Good night.